OSMT fans, Bottom Dead Center fans, we are back here on the OSMT YouTube channel. It is episode 10. We are officially in the 2-digit column of our Bottom Dead Center show here on the OSMT YouTube channel. Hey, and look, I am joined by my one of my all-time favorite co-hosts of anything that I've ever done that needed co-hosting, whether it was sharing a steak, a hotel room, a rental car, or a screen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matt Looker. Oh, I didn't have my applause ready, but we'll pump some applause in right about there.
Pump it in.
Hey, we have
Not
a
too
mystery
much.
guest joining us tonight, too, but we can't hear him and we can't see him yet. So we'll get to our mystery guest here in a minute. We'll just leave you guys guessing. But here on episode 10 of Bottom Dead Center this evening, we're going to abandon our normal show format, and we are going all in on all the awesome stuff that just happened this last weekend in monster trucks. We are recording Wednesday evening, June 11th. So just a couple days after we all got back from the crazy weekends that we just had. Crazy in a good way, no doubt. Matt Looker, you guys had sort of a throwdown influenced show in Joliet, Illinois that we're going to get to in a little bit. Myself, I was actually, I guess I was a bold-faced liar on the show last week when I said I wasn't going to make it back to St. Louis for the BIGFOOT open house. I decided to get a wild hair up my ass, and my oldest daughter and I loaded up on a plane Thursday, and we made it back to St. Louis for the open house, and tons of cool stuff to cover there. But as I get ready to introduce our mystery guest here, Matt, I can't help but feel just a little creeped out. Like, I don't know about you, but it's been raining a lot in Wyoming lately, and it's been warm, and the reptiles have been out, the scaly creatures with fangs and stuff like that. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I feel like there could be a snake around here somewhere, but I'm not sure if that's the case. Let's check in with our son of a...
Oh, there he is. There he is.
I knew it. The little kid in all of us can't help but find a couple extra beats per minute in our heart with Colt Cobra of Snake Bite joining us here on Bottom Dead Center. And we all know there's only one man behind the Colt Cobra mask, right? And that could be nobody else but one of our all-time favorites, Mr. Jean Patterson. Pump the applause in there. What's up, Jean? Good to see you again.
Hey, here, now you can see me.
There we go. I remember seeing you at Arrowhead Stadium, April 92. I was a wee little guy getting my autographs. You were Colt, and you were parked with Bigfoot 9 as Snakebite right behind a Bigfoot trailer. And I remember walking right up to you and being like, "Are you just a Bigfoot truck?" No, man, the rig broke down and they're just helping us out. I remember that bold-faced lie to this day.
I can't tell you how many times we have to share those stories, you know.
Yeah, I like your cup, though. That's good.
Oh, yeah, I gotta rep my team, you know.
That's right. Same here. You know me.
Last year, but Travis he's been working out and not just in the bedroom. He's ready to go this year.
Yeah, I hope he's hit every stop on the Eras tour, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, did you ever get to see Gene drive back in the day out in New York or anywhere?
I don't think I did. So when I was a kid, we really didn't. We had one older car that did not travel very well, as opposed to like two newer cars that families have. So it was pretty much West Leb and Albany. Gene, I don't think you ever drove in Albany. I'm trying to remember. There was definitely, it was John Pyant, Runte, David Byers was there. Meager was there.
We used to Uniondale, which is Long Island. Nobody wants to go there, but we always
right.
Prior to going to Bigfoot. Madison Square Gardens, Hamburg. I did a show there with Kramer. That's about it, really, in the New York.
Okay. Did you do that? Did you do that series where it was American Gladiator, Carolina Crusher, Bigfoot, and Snakebite, and y'all ran Straight Line and Roundy Round at the same show? I don't even remember what promoter it was, because I saw that one at Albany Saratoga Speedway in Malta.
No,
in like 93.
I don't.
Okay.
Oh, that might have been Lonnie.
That almost sounds like either a small USA sold show or one of those Aero Tracks shows that Bigfoot was kind of doing with Patrick back then.
Yeah, I don't think we did any fairs up that way with Patrick. I think it would have been a USA one pickup up that way
Gotcha.
Okay.
because we did an awful lot of the USA stuff, and then they started going east and getting up
Yep.
into where it was cold country.
Oh yeah. Well, oh my God, we could have an 8-hour episode just bench racing here. I have to throw this in here before I forget, because we're going to start talking serious stuff, and then I know I'll forget. My brain is still bombed out from the weekend. Just so my excuses are in order, so everybody knows, it was a last minute trip. I flew into town late. I stayed at one of my oldest, bestest friend's house, and I'm pretty sure the only thing that comes out of his kitchen sink faucet is bourbon. So every time I ask for my water glass refilled, that's about all I got. So there's still a mind haze I'm trying to clear out. But Jean, I hadn't gotten to see you in person for quite a few years, so I was really excited when we got to the open house. We spotted you right away. I think you were in line to use one of the restrooms, and you were being accosted by somebody. And so I came up, and I was going to give you the old snake fangs in the neck just to kind of surprise you. And I think at first I caught you off guard and you didn't recognize me, or you just thought, what the hell is this person doing touching my neck? But I have to let you know, on the way home from the open house, Kurt's like, dude, I was worried for a second. I thought Jean didn't recognize you. And he's like, when you did the thing, and it came out without any thinking. I said, oh, when I finger fanged him? So you've been finger fanged. I'm sorry.
Well, there's so many people, and I don't know, when was the last open house you were at? Can you remember?
The last one I'd have been at was the last one I worked, which was probably 2013, I would say.
Okay, so that was at the old shop.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I don't even know if I was up there for that. But I can tell you the last 4 to 5 down here where they're at now, even though they're supposed to kick off at 10 and go till 2 or 3, and when we got there at 6:45 and moved the trucks out a little after 7, and it was from 7 to 3 o'clock, we were swamped.
Yeah, I don't doubt it at all, man. I mean, it was crazy busy, and there's not one photo, and we'll get to more of that here in a minute, but I will say, to your point, there was not one photo that you could actually reference to see how many people were there, because it was like 3 separate wings of the party, which was pretty cool. But before we get into all of that, Looker, you guys were up at Route 66 Raceway in Joliet. It's kind of funny, worth mentioning, you were in Joliet, which is just outside of Chicagoland. Frank, who's battling some gremlins with the monster trucks in Steve Sims's fleet tonight, can't be with us. He was in Decatur, Illinois on an off weekend, crewing for Scott Liddycoat's power drag racing boat, or however those are described. And then we were down in St. Louis. So we were all actually, and at one point we were all staying the night in the same state, which is pretty funny because Kurt's house is over on the Illinois side. So it's the closest any of us have been able to make it at one time. And of course, none of us got to see each other. But tell us what you had going on up at Route 66 Raceway in Joliet with what was kind of like a hybrid monster truck throwdown event.
Yeah, and to your point about us all being in the same state, that's how traveling is. You travel a lot and you sometimes do nothing but the work. You can be, 10 minutes from someone you hadn't seen in 10 years and can't make it work, but that's how it is. So anyways, Joliet, the Dirty O, they call it, for anyone that's been there. It's Dirt Oval at Route 66 Raceway. It's always a big show for us. Elliot generally is kind of the contractor for that show. Sherry with the Speedway puts it together. It's called Monster Truck Mayhem, as it has been for a lot of years. But Throwdown staffs it. We book trucks and all that stuff. And it was just a good time. It was a good show. I'd say, a great show. Good kind of a little bit off the table. We brought figure eight racing back there, which we've run figure eight at Sycamore Speedway for probably 3 or 4 years now, and I love doing a figure eight track. It's a nice long race, but not too long. And when you get a good race in figure eight, it's a cool finish. The trucks are coming. They're kind of together, but the guy that's behind isn't really behind. He's just on the outside. So he's trying to catch up because he thinks he's behind, but they're actually together. So it just makes for a cool race. Chris Kohler in Mayhem that murdered out Chevelle took the win. We had a couple cool saves in racing. best trick was pretty close between him and Jerry Beck and the Dirt Crew, but Jerry had 2 textbook slap wheelies. One was off of a real big jump, which is kind of a different look when you land a 10, 20-foot jump and then slap wheelie after it. And one of the things about outdoor monster truck shows, I'm sure you guys have fought this almost every time. You get the dust, but then when you got rain in the forecast, you kind of struggle with how much to water the track down. It's like, okay, do we want the first half of the show to be a dust bowl and then it's maybe salvageable for freestyle, or do we want to wet the track before the show and, have a complete mud pit halfway through? We knew it was going to rain at some point during the day. We weren't sure how much. It ended up being perfect. It just started to sprinkle during freestyle. We didn't rush it, but we took out a lot of the fluff, t-shirt toss and that. And we ended up blowing a fireworks off in the middle of freestyle, and we set them off during Jim Kohler's freestyle, which was kind of cool, having fireworks in the background of a monster truck freestyle.
I feel like if you're going to have your fireworks go off during any one truck on the track, Kohler's a good one for it. But 100%. I will say, for all our viewers and listeners out there, it's not the first time I've seen Looker blow off things earlier than they were supposed to.
That, I assure you, that never happens. As everyone's, it never happens, guys.
No, swear that never happens.
Yeah, it was a big lineup. It sounded to me like you guys had a killer.
Yeah.
So tell me about the double bus stack. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Looker.
No, I was just going to agree with Mr. Cobra there. Yeah, it was a good lineup. It was all 4 of Kohler's trucks, which is Joe Foley and Axe, Jim in Avenger. It was the Spider Body, Chris and Mayhem, and then his next youngest son, John in Brutus, who John's going to be a fantastic driver. He's already fun to watch, but just with a little bit of experience, he's going to be fantastic. And then there were 2 of Jerry Beck's, the Cybertruck, which Jared Smith does a great job. He's another one he's only got like a year of experience, but is doing a great job. He was actually king of the beach this year at Virginia Beach, which for a rookie driver, that's doing something. And then it was Jerry and, oh my God, who were the other 2? Wow, that's 4 of me.
It looked like you had Haymaker and Frostbite, I think.
Yes, that's right. Haymaker and Frostbite. They did a good job as well.
The save.
I ran with Jerry a little bit when we were doing the, I can't remember which tour it was, when we had Snake. Maybe? And I went to Kansas City and a couple other shows with him. And that man inside is just a terror on wheels. Yeah. I mean, he does a fabulous show, and I don't know what keeps that truck together. I really honestly do not. And I know it's not duct tape because I don't even think Gorilla Tape is that strong to do what that truck week out. It's I don't think he gets the respect for one. It's just jaw dropping when you watch him and how old that chassis is, and it holds up. I mean, but when you go to change transmission, you better count on 2 days to do it because that's how it seems like how long it takes to get it weaseled out through there.
Yeah, that was definitely from the days when we weren't trying to do those things in half an hour or less in between racing and freestyle.
Well, he changed to a power glide for that reason.
Yeah. Wasn't his chassis, isn't that chassis the old War Wizard or no Wizard chassis or not? Does anybody, you guys know?
That's the old Nightmare 2 Screaming Demon chassis from 92 or 93.
Oh.
That was a Gary
Bauer's Nightmare.
Okay, I know the cage or the cradle is very, very tight. There's not bars that's been removed to get trannies in and out like they are on the modern trucks. And it's a real pain.
This calls for an Army Armstrong segment if we could AI one together, like Army's walking the pits at the monster truck throwdown event, and he's pointing to, Frost, this here's what we call a modern monster truck. Now, if you step over here, we look at this next truck. This here's also a modern monster truck. But this, Gary Lee, look right here at this dump truck. He didn't bring the dirt in here. He's going to be dragging it out in the ass of this thing. This thing here is not a monster truck. It's one tough son of a bitch. Back to you, Gary Lee. Like, that's I want the unfiltered R-rated Army Armstrong call for all the shows.
Hey, did you get a chance to meet him?
So, listen, I didn't know he was there. And this is the most me and Army Armstrong way of meeting or not meeting, because every encounter we've ever had has been kind of funny like this.
Yeah.
And I'm standing in line to get my kid a pulled pork sandwich because she's hungry. She's running on fumes. You know how it is. So we're just standing in line at that nice food trailer there outside the fence of the shop yard.
Yeah.
And this older gentleman kind of just goes moseying on by himself. And he was dressed what I might call eclectically for the weather. And I thought, son of a bitch, that looked like Army Armstrong a little bit. But I hadn't seen Army in a long time. So I was like, no, that wasn't Army. It couldn't have been. And he was on his way out to leave. You know, he had stayed for a little bit and then was on his way out to leave. And so my daughter finishes eating, and, you know, my buddy and I swig back a soda, and we're ready to walk around. And one of my buddies there, he's like, hey, did you catch Army before you left? I'm like, shit, that was Army Armstrong. Damn it. So it's I don't know if I've seen Army since we announced Eldora together, the first monster truck show there in like 2008. But a lot of stories about that one we'll tell on another episode. But Looker, so how'd you guys close out the show with the freestyle side of things? I'll drop the video in, but I want you to describe for us because a lot I'm learning a lot of our viewers, let's say, have to kind of listen to us in the background sometimes, because especially me, we're long-winded. These episodes get long, so they don't always see the visuals. But describe your double bus stack that we were talking about off air before we started, and the 7, 8, or 9, 10, 15 ways you can hit that thing.
So before I do the double bus, I'm going to say we also had not only a Class A motorhome, and I'm talking about the one that when you hit it, it falls over on its side. You don't knock through it like a lot. And we also had a pit shack with a K-rail up to it. It was just made of wood, so we blasted through that. So the double bus.
Don't get Gene excited about running over small buildings.
Oh, jeez.
No way.
Oh, man. I didn't even realize what I did there.
He wouldn't have come on if he knew he was going to catch strays about that already.
We weren't in Wisconsin, so we're good.
Okay.
All right, so we had the double bus jammer, we call it. It's something we started doing a few years ago at Throwdown shows. A couple other people do it now. So you take two buses that are about the same length, put a FMX lander on one side, and prop a jammer car up on the front side where the front of the buses are. And then here in Joliet, we had 4 other ramps on the side. So you had 6 official ways to hit it. And then if you wanted to be creative, there were 2 others. So there were 8 different ways you could hit it. And a lot of people pretty much hit every way to hit it. John Kohler with Brutus, he opened his freestyle by hitting, it was a little ramp with a jammer car put up to the top of the bus. So if you imagine hitting that with one of Kohler's tanks at full speed and the air that he got, it was a good way to start your freestyle. It's a cool obstacle, and I always like trying to do something different with the track. Of course, this one, the Route 66 folks build the track for us. Before we get there, we kind of tell them what we'd like. I always try to do something different with obstacles depending on the vehicles we get, and that's one that is always fun to hit, because if you hit the bus from the jammer side, it's a really big hit, and you can downside the ramp and make it a cool hit. But if you come up short, you're landing on a school bus, which, you know, that's a pretty soft hit. If you're going to come up short on something, you'd want to come up short on top of a school bus, right?
I love the design of your track, dude. Like, you look at the videos people have posted on YouTube, and it looks like one of those video game or like simulator programs that guys are, you know, I almost say, you know, that the kids are playing on. But you know what I'm talking about, right? Like a BeamNG or Rigs of Rods, where somebody just custom designed a track in an environment where they had that much open dirt space to go crazy with. And instead, you guys end up delivering, you know, what one might say is a simple but a really good racetrack. Gene, we talked about that on a recent episode, how sometimes just a couple of jumps thoughtfully placed in a good track layout oftentimes makes for better racing than a motocross track out there. What do you think on something like that?
Oh, well, who runs the Joliet track now? I mean, because I see NHRA come back this year, right? They're up there running this year again, right?
So NASCAR actually owns the property, but Sherry Heckenast has a lifetime lease on the dirt track. So it's not really her track, but she can run events there. But yeah, NASCAR owns it. And yeah, they were at the drag strip, or NHRA was at the drag strip this year.
NHRA, yeah.
Yeah. Well, didn't they used to have, what was the guy's name, Kyle, and you'll possibly remember from US Hot Rod, that was running that track. In fact, he was the one that bought Robosaurus or was out there to auction. And
Oh,
he
man.
was, no offense, he kind of looks like Matt. What
Are you thinking of Share now?
I don't know.
You thinking of Brian Share now?
No,
I don't know.
No,
I don't know
That
who
was gonna
that
be my
who it
guess.
was.
well, he was up there for quite a while, and then I don't know where they shipped him off to or whatever happened. So I didn't know if he was still around. He did some safety stuff for US Hot Rod back in the day, and I can see his face, and all I keep seeing Matt, but he didn't have a beard like Matt did. Okay, so but he had the hair problem on the top. Let's put it that way.
Look he's the only guy on the screen with luscious locks of salt and pepper hair because Looker and I have to shave our heads. Jeez.
Yeah.
That was return fire for the snake bite and shed comment. All right, we're even now.
Well,
I'll take it.
is the
I'll
bus
take it.
cheap? Is cheaper to get now? I mean, because you guys on these outdoor tracks, I've been seeing a lot more of these big stacks and stuff like that. And I mean, for years, nobody. Well, I guess you get used to watching them bastards from down in Florida, and they don't like to use cars at all. But yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's so bus got to be more expensive.
It is.
Yeah,
it
I
costs
mean, I'm
more
sure
for
the stuff's
car.
not cheap, but then I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No, I was going to say we do have to deal with less cars than we used to because they're more expensive. And, the dirt, a lot of the outdoor shows that we do, the dirt's already there, or we get it trucked in and it's kind of the same cost as it used to be. It's just about bringing the level of the shows up from what people are used to because people expect more and more each year. You can't do the same show for 20 years. People ain't gonna come watch, and the track owners aren't going to want to do the same thing for 20 years. So, yeah, it definitely is more expensive than doing a smaller one. But
I think, we talked about this in a recent episode about trying to drive return business. There are smaller, promoters working on smaller budgets, and some of them are legitimately trying to grow their program and their brand, and some of them are just trying to knock out a one night in Flea Town with some cash in hand, and they're not worried about coming back the next time. But, promoters like Throwdown, whether it's being contracted to help produce an event like Joliet that's hosting the event, or, Elliot and his crew with Matt are out actively promoting these events, at venues they're renting, they're all looking for return business. And sometimes you really have to dig into the pocketbook a little bit, and you got to spend money to make money, but you also have to spend money to drive the loyalty from the fans. And I think that becomes a good segue into talking about the BIGFOOT 50th anniversary open house this weekend. And you talk about loyalty. We'll get into the brand loyalty of BIGFOOT fans here in a second, but strictly the event. It's patronized by the local community, very thoroughly, and those folks are loyal to that company and that brand and that venue, that event, because they're treated to such a good experience there. So whether you're paying for it or it's free, building consumer loyalty, I think, is, something that parts of this industry have been really good at. Parts maybe not so much. But in the case of BIGFOOT's open house, I definitely think that was there. So, Jean, I'd love to give my impressions just as somebody that rolled into town last minute. But before that, I'd like to hear your thoughts a little bit, or a little bit of the story of what does it take to get, BIGFOOT 4 dressed as Snakebite up to the event and set up. And, what are you guys doing on your part, you and Fred and Jason Rona? What are you guys doing to bring that truck? Because we all know that's one of the most special trucks at the event.
Right. And and I apologize. I mean, I don't know when you left the foot camp, but when BIGFOOT sold number 4 to the couple here in Owensville, Missouri, they had every intention of using the truck. The truck rolled right out. It still had the blue body on it. It had the 35th logo, the flags on the bedside.
Yeah, it was the 30th. Yep, the 30th.
Okay, so they had it for a while, a few months. They did a couple fairs with it, and then they bought a ride truck. And then they actually reached out to me, and I went down and helped them get it running a little bit. And we went to Kansas for a Torgenson show, and this had to be, I can't remember the year.
I think it was
And
like 06, 07, because I remember you driving 4 at that show thinking, holy shit, the snake is back.
yeah, we had it in the finals both nights against the Mongoose 4-link, badass truck from Michigan. And there was like 3 other monster trucks there, and they're like, how's that thing work? And I'm like, I don't know. Don't ask me. We didn't even have a blow. So then it sat in their trailer for 2 or 3 years, or a couple of years after that, and they just really weren't doing anything. They've got a big family, the Waymeyers do, and they just really didn't. I don't think they pushed it hard enough. I mean, they had a truck, and an independent, you've got to get out there and hustle.
Yep.
And I think they expected promoters to call them, thinking what they had, but obviously they couldn't use the Bigfoot name. So it sat there, and then Jason got wind of it, and him and John Pyatt contacted me, and next thing I know, it's on a U-Haul trailer going to Florida. And I'm thinking, it's going to Florida to retire and live out its life, in life of sun. Fast forward another 2 years, Fred ends up with it, and he gets me and Lonnie together, and me and Lonnie Childress with Gateway Mustang, we drive down there and pick it up July 4th, whatever year it was, and bring it back to Missouri and did a total rehab on it. And, of course, throw in COVID, motor problems. The motor was at a guy's place for over a year. The guy used to build Bigfoot's engines. And then, sadly, he passed away before he even got tore into the engine. So then we had to go get it, find another guy that wanted to do it, and done Doug Nelke's motors with Bad Dog. And about 6-7 months later, he got into it and got it fixed. Well, we took the truck all the way down to the bare frame. And we had a great team there at Lonnie's shop that worked on it every weekend that we could, all through the winter months, of course. And then when Lonnie and them's show schedule got busy, then we wouldn't hardly touch it. But that was the first time that truck had ever been down completely all the way back to its frame since it was created, I guess, when Bob and them created it. But just the amount of time it takes to we took over 2,000 pictures, mind you, when we disassembled this truck. And Kyle and Matt probably too, but there's a lot of people that will understand this. We put the zip ties back exactly where they were at, because we knew, like what you were talking about earlier about the keyboard racers, they was going to pick that truck apart. We could have saved a lot on battery cables and everything else, but when Roy and Jay and them, everything that happened to that truck, it went back to the way it was. If there was a piece of strap that was keeping a battery cable from rubbing, we put it in the exact same place. I mean, everything down to a T. Well, you're talking 6 years. First, it was just going to be put a new body on it, get it out there and going. Well, then we start tearing this apart, and then you tear this apart, and then you try to find this. And Star Creations was trying to recreate a body that we wanted to represent Bigfoot as it used to be. And Kyle, you'll know from coming to work from Bigfoot how much work there was in making those bodies look not just with a jigsaw.
Yeah.
We all have flares, and Lonnie and I, we put a real grill in it, and nobody does that anymore. So we had to change. We made the front clip and sent it to Star, and back and forth about a year and a half it took them just to actually get us a front clip that would look right. And then Bigfoot supplied all the paint. They were on board with us. They helped us out a bunch. They painted the blue when we put the Bigfoot body together. They done the racer stripe. We took it up their shop. We had all the body work done. Lonnie Childress did all the airbrush work. He hadn't touched an airbrush probably for 20, 30 years. And, of course, everybody, if you don't, and it's no kin to me, Dan Patterson was the best there ever was as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, definitely.
What he used to do to our haulers, and Kyle, back in the day, how beautiful those haulers were going up down the road, and you contribute that all to Patterson. But yeah, so we debuted it 3 years ago with the Bigfoot body on it to great fanfare. We had it set next to Bigfoot number 8, and people just couldn't get over it. Man, the biggest compliment that we got was probably Bob Chandler coming up and say it didn't even look this good when we first built the truck. So I thought that was fantastic. But just tracking down bushings and components that are not even made anymore. Of course, after COVID, a lot of places just closed up. We couldn't find fuel pumps. We couldn't. The injector hat was special made by Alki Digger. We wanted it to look like a Crowler, but it's an Enderley hat. But you couldn't even find an Enderley bug catcher. I mean, everybody, the drag racers, they were catering to the drag racers because they were so far behind from taking time off during COVID. So they were getting all the fast parts and stuff. So everybody else was kind of like sucking hind tit, and we're trying to figure out how to put this stuff together. But then we thought we were going to send it to the museum after that up in Butler, Indiana. And then Lonnie decided, and Fred together, we decided we wanted to put a snakebite body together. So here we go back to the drawing board again, and probably about 6 months of my fingers. I could go rob a bank yet today, 2 years later, and still not leave fingerprints behind from all the sanding. All the roll bar on the truck, the bumpers, we had no patterns. All we had was magazine articles. We contacted Roy Hoosier a couple times, and he helped us a little bit, but Roy's been gone a long time, and it turned out beautiful. Of course, now that paint job, Lonnie did everything on it, all the airbrush work, but we just had photographs hanging on the wall in the paint booth, and we tried to do Patterson justice. I think it really turned out really good. I mean, the second year being at Bigfoot's open house, if you're on the fake book pages, you can pretty much see what trucks got photographed a lot. And ironically, Snakebite was one of them. So we're very proud. It's I'm not sure what the next step is for it or where it's going to end up. I know we've got Fred's got the locker in the rear end's messed up, and that has to be replaced. But all in all, I think we did a great justice to the truck. I wish it was out being able to be seen more, but I think, Kyle, you would have really we talked about doing the Bigfoot body in the morning and the snakebite body in the afternoon, and after 6-7 years, and you just wear everybody out,
yeah.
and we're just, I'm glad we left the snakebite body on it. And with the drizzling rain and everything, I mean, it would have been pretty cool, but there's still a lot of work. I mean, it's easy to sit here in the chair and just say it took 6 years, to put this truck together. But every weekend, I mean, it's about 100. It's about 100-mile, about a 200-mile round trip, and it's exhausting. I mean, and just like I said, trying to track down parts, Headman headers that Lonnie run into them at SEMA, and they said, yeah, we still got all the patterns. We'll make you a set of headers, Okay, good, because we were going to run them underneath the truck. The headers show up. They're for Bigfoot 14. They're not even for Bigfoot. Yeah. Brand
One extra digit.
Yeah. Got that engine, massive, coated, beautiful set of headers with turn downs on it that we couldn't even use. So we got the other ones that we ran on Snakebite, and we just left them on there for the Bigfoot, because really that truck, once I put Snakebite together and we ran the upright headers back from AKA when Kramer was doing that during the truck pulls on, like, say, Bigfoot 6 maybe.
Yep.
I think he tried them on. And when I changed the truck up, when we when we brought Snakebite out, I put those headers on it because they were hanging up in the rafters upstairs. So that truck really ran that style header for a long, long time. So it really wasn't it wasn't a discredit, but it was, okay, we'll accept this. But yeah, I got a hold of Beard. Of course, the seat company sold out. We got there's a new suspension seat company in Indianapolis. They were able to recreate a seat for us. So I mean, it was just a lot of work. I'm very proud of it. Um, I'm very proud of the way it turns out. I'm very proud of the fact that people still remember it, and that people are bringing their kids now to see it, and the fact that Hot Wheels is still re-releasing the toys. I mean, it's a pretty iconic truck, really. So I hope when you was there, Kyle, you got a chance to kind of walk around it. I mean, I don't know if you ever drove it when you worked at Bigfoot, but I mean, it was a workhorse for a long time at Bigfoot.
No, they had sold it a few years before I started work there, unfortunately. I was around it a little bit when I was a crew guy for Hall Brothers because we'd come to the Bigfoot shop for the MTRA meeting every winter, and Four was always in there getting a few things done so we could go back out and do the Firestone, display
Yeah.
circuit and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny how many pictures I have of Bigfoot 4 from over the years, but never got to really. I don't know if I've ever even sat in that truck, to be honest with you, but I love that truck. It's certainly one of my all time favorite Bigfoot trucks. I'll post a picture of it in the episode. It's too hard to dig it down from the shelf right now, but the helmet that I raced with for most of my career at Bigfoot, Nick Dvorak and I painted it, and I hand lettered on the back. Nick had airbrushed to look like a big crack, and a chip of the helmet was missing, and I scrawled in white paint on the back like graffiti. Bigfoot 4 was here instead of like
Yeah.
Kilroy was here. Because that thing just left a trail of destruction everywhere it went. But, you talk about the truck being in the best shape it's inarguably ever been in right now. And I think that's the tale of a working monster truck, isn't it? Because it might have been in spectacular shape when it first came out. And then, Kramer rolls it in late 86. So then they rebody it to an 87, but they throw the 84 clip on just to get through the last show and not spoil the big reveal for 87. Rich runs it for a few years. Andy runs it a little bit. And then by the time Pyant gets a significant time behind the wheel, it's running a glass body and all of that. He wads it up in Nashville. And that's when that truck really starts to become a bit of a Frankenstein, version of a Bigfoot truck, because the way I understand it, Gene, is at the time there wasn't time to just slap a different frame under it and, get another truck on the road or build a new tube chassis truck. So it ended up being quicker. And as you know, this is so often the case. It ends up becoming quicker to just fix the son of a bitch and get it back out the door than it is to start from scratch. And you can see the scars on that truck where, they had to straighten parts of the frame and weld things in and cut things off. And that's the character of that truck. And then it's been really a working truck for the rest of its life after that too, until it kind of went dormant before y'all rescued it. So, you and I were standing there looking at the truck and talking to Kurt, and we're kind of looking down the frame rail, and you can see where the old, like the Rancho shock mounts had been, ground off the frame, and, clearance made for the nitrogen shocks, and, leaf springs are longer, and there's, link bars and support bars and stuff. And I mean, that thing intimately compared to the way I do, but just looking at it, I mean, you can feel there's some serious history. And I credit you guys for leaving the snake bite body on too, because I would say in the 50 years of Bigfoot, obviously the snake's been a part of it for, 3/5 of that or around there. It's such an important part. The first 3D bodied monster truck, the first monster truck that had the full support of a toy brand launch behind it with Hot Wheels. And I love blue, but there was more than enough blue there on Saturday. It was good to have a little bit of red out there, I think.
Well, I know Fred wanted us after we got it all stripped down and we actually could see all the battle scars. And he said, why don't we take it to a frame shop and get it straightened up? And we're like, are you kidding? Nothing's going to bolt back on this truck. Nothing will match up. We're going to spend more time trying to bolt the roll cage back on because the roll cage was bolted on. We can't figure that one out. But then when Brian had broke the frame up in Alaska, and he talked about fixing that, we're like, no, that's character. We've got to leave it the way it is. There's just no possible way. But yeah, when the Hot Wheels toy came out with the Racing Champions and we introduced Snakebite in 91, I guess it was,
Yep.
when it first came out, and we all had the meeting in the shop, and a lot of people know the story, that Hot Wheels, the name was supposed to be called Nemesis of the truck. And then when we started doing some research and we found out that Ford actually had ties to the name Snakebite because of the Carroll Shelby era.
Oh yeah.
So us being associated with Ford, it all kind of rolled together, and it was easier just to do that name than it was to go with the Nemesis name. I have some pictures that Roy sent me of the original drawings, and it said Nemesis on the side. So then when we brought the truck out, of course, that was the kickoff for the Penda series, and there was what 4, 5 maybe of 4-link trucks at the time or better, and then we had the rest of the field was stacked up with some leaf spring trucks and us included. And when we went to get it pushed in the magazine, or the magazine people all wanted to see this truck, and I just pulled on my white sock from my fire mask, not thinking anything about it, being the showman that I was back then and still am today. And then the rest is just history, like they say. Then Patterson started airbrushing mask, and next thing you know, we're running over sheds and we're running over Gary Porter, and
you were a nemesis at that point.
One Snakebite next year, promote all the promoters, USA, Dave Matthews, all these guys wanted Snakebite at their show. Andy and I was taking the truck, and we were doing grudge matches for US Hot Rod, and we're like, we're living a dream, I mean, this, we don't even have to run anybody else, we're just running each other. And I mean that I think that's what propelled it. And like you said, Kyle, it was the first 3D truck, and it wasn't just something that was stowed together too. I mean, how when you work there, how meticulous they were on everything, and we did our best to get it to the cartoon that Hot Wheels had out. But I mean, it is a testament to the truck. It's still as much people like this weekend or Saturday when we were down there, people come up, oh, I remember you, I remember when you did this, and I remember when you, I remember in Pontiac, Michigan, when you clotheslined Andy Brass on the ground. That was so cool. And I'm just like, dude, that's like 25 years ago. I can't remember what I did last week, but that's the super fans that we've got out there. So it's really cool. The truck's still around. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud that it's associated with Bigfoot. I'm glad that it's not out rusting away somewhere behind the woods. I'm very happy for Terry and everything he's brought back to. And I don't think a lot of people even understood the importance of the amount of history that was right there on those grounds this past Saturday. The occasional monster truck person just thought it was a bunch of monster trucks, but those that have eat, sleep, lived it, they knew what was sitting on those grounds, and it was pretty cool.
Well, let's talk about that then. So we'll get into the event proper here a little bit, and I'll kind of give you my impression of it. Obviously, y'all were down there, and I say y'all, I mean a shit ton of people, fans,
Yeah.
and industry type and team, members alike were all down there. So my oldest daughter and I, Cadence, we were, gosh. I looked at flights last Monday and they were prohibitively expensive. I mean, yeah, we could have afforded it, but that was way out of my budget as far as what I really wanted to spend, which makes me sound like a tight ass. And sometimes I am, but I mean, $1,200 to fly out for the weekend, that's tough a little bit. But then we just kept, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I thought you have your own jet. I thought that's what you went off to Wyoming and started your big IPA business, and now you got your own jet.
No, some guy in a red truck shaped like a snake drove clean through the hangar, and I got nowhere to park it now. But anyways, we were watching flights, and of course my wife is the great enabler, and I love her for that, and she's right. She was telling me, she's like, screw it, just go. Like, you'll pay it off or pay for it, whatever. You'll figure it out. Just go. You'll be mad if you don't go. Like, in a year's time, even maybe in a month's time, you'll be like, I should have spent that, and I went. And so, I'm trying to kind of line out this detail and that, and we had a, very, very busy weekend ahead of us at work here in Wyoming. And I hate to leave, my guys behind when there's big stuff to do. And even they're like, dude, you got to go. There's only one 50th anniversary. And I'm like, man, everybody's right. But I don't know. I still think I was on the verge of making the wrong decision. And then somebody somewhere somehow at United helped me out and activated the low fares button on Thursday. And for like $600, we could fly back. I was like, on it. like got to do it. So we got into St. Louis real late Friday night, and like I said, I was parched and found a sink that only puts bourbon in your cup. So what is a boy to do? Made an old school night of it with Kurt, and then we get down to the city of Pacific, and Gene, you and I both worked out of the same Bigfoot shop, 6311 Lindbergh Boulevard, up on the north side of town. So most all of the time, if we were going through Pacific for something, we weren't stopping. We were on our way west on 44, trying to get out to I-40 and go places further on, or we were coming home from somewhere out west. So I've actually never stopped around there. I think I did a charity gig with Bigfoot One in Eureka, Missouri once, and that's about as close as I've ever come to stopping in Pacific. So first off, that community's obviously really rallied around the Bigfoot business being there. They've embraced it. There's a grocery store / market that has a huge, chunk of Bigfoot memorabilia in it. I didn't get to go in there, but obviously I've seen the photos. You've got a retired version of Bigfoot 10 out by the interstate to kind of command people's view. Bigfoot 5 gets parked in different places. And so the parking for the event ends up being at the community high school, and they've got shuttle buses running people, which I thought was genius. Quite a bit of rain, it looked like, had come down in the days prior, so any fields or pastures you would have tried to park in were quickly turning into muddy messes. So great organization on the part of the town of Pacific and Bigfoot, just figuring out the logistics of moving people around. You don't build a shop like what they've got, anticipating thousands upon thousands of people in their cars needing to park somewhere. So credit to them on that, certainly. We rode the shuttle bus down, hopped off, and traffic control was great. The local police department was on top of stuff. And this all sounds like boring fluff, but all three of us have been a part of some really big events. I still deal with live events, all summer long in my line of work. Looker, you do as well. Crowd control, customer service, efficiency, moving people in an orderly way. Those are the kind of things that can break your event before you ever get to roll one cool ass monster truck out of the shop. Never mind just shy of 30 of them, by my count, that were in attendance for the event, between Bigfoot's own trucks and then other trucks that were on display or performing. And so immediately, you're greeted by just this, Gene, correct me if I'm wrong, but I got the immediate feeling that we were like at a 4-wheel jamboree. That's kind of what it felt like to me. We were in the Monster Corral at a 4-wheel jamboree.
Yeah. Well, when they first moved to Pacific, the first year they had it, it was kind of low-keyed. It was still a big mess. The team at Bigfoot did their best, to control the crowd. But then the city of Pacific really came on board the second year and seeing what it was bringing to the community. And, we never really got that at Hazelwood when we were up there at Hazelwood when they did the open houses there. And I wasn't working there when they did open houses at Hazelwood, but I attended them. And I can tell you it's nothing like Pacific. The mayor got on board. I think after the first year, they started doing the whole fundraising to get the thing up by the interstate. And Pacific really wanted to be what you just said a while ago. Usually when we were trucking through there, we used to buy fuel down the road down there at the fuel at the flag, which is not there anymore. It's at the Eureka exit. Andy always used to stop there because they got free sandwich with a fill up. So, and then you went right through Pacific. There's one exit and there was nothing there. So now that they've got Bigfoot in there, all the local businesses in years past used to, they asked Bob Trent if they could charge for parking. He's like, it's your business, go for it. So I didn't see anybody doing it this year, but in years past, they've had people set up at their own businesses and were charging like $5 or $10 to park it. And nobody threw a bitch, nobody cared. It's just like, they really have accepted Bigfoot in that position. And the fire department in years past brought fire trucks up there, for the kids to crawl in. Like you said, the police department. This is the first year it's spread out. That big parking lot where we were parked at, that used to be just a gravel lot. So if you can imagine, of course, they've never had 30 trucks there, but they built the souvenir barn. It opened last year. So we were actually parked in front of that. And then you had everything else right there around the shop. So it was just a big, big conglomeration of people on top of people. And now they finally got it spread out enough. And I think there's even more room for advancement, but Lauren Bixler, who was with us, he used to be our flagman from Penda when we raced Penda, and he always comes down to visit with my wife, Susan, and myself, and spends the weekend with us. He said the same thing you said. He said, "This is a jamboree. This could be a jamboree with the amount of trucks that we had." Like Danny Moss said, I think it was 30, either 29 or 30. And I mean, now not all of them are performing, but yeah, back in the day when the jamborees were up, that's what you had at a jamboree, and just people showing their trucks off. So hats off to the Bigfoot crew for putting the event on. 50 years, yeah, and like Bob said, it's for all monster trucks. It wasn't just for Bigfoot, because it brought them to the forefront. But the city of Pacific, all the restaurants that we went to, they knew about it. Of course, 2 hotels that are in town were sold out. They probably don't sell out any other time of the year,
Probably not.
So it's just really a cool deal. And I mean, it takes a lot to put something like that on. It's not just something you wake up and decide to do it, but it changes. And when you get a weather, and Matt, you fought it up there in Joliet. You guys had to change stuff on the fly. You said it, and the people really don't get to see behind the scenes how chaotic it can be. But when the night's over and you take that top off that beer and you're drinking it and you think, man, we made a lot of people happy. And I think that's what happened down there this weekend too.
No, tremendously. And like I said, as you walk up and it's kind of got a jamboree style, vibrant party atmosphere, but it wasn't too crowded either. I mean, yeah, it got packed in a couple spots, especially when, people were wanting to watch car crush performances and things happen. But I thought it was really comfortable, honestly, how it all ended up getting laid out. I think they did what more can you ask out of a free event? You certainly can't ask more out of a free event. So, it felt clean. It felt safe. There was ample restroom, things and stuff like that. All the things as a parent now I think about, like, I hope they have plenty of concessions. I hope they got plenty of bathrooms, you know what I mean? Like t-shirt stands, like all the stuff that the kids are going to ask for, and they had all that going on. And that's some of the expertise that comes with so many decades of doing this stuff. But, I think about when we did the open houses in Hazelwood. I mean, if it wasn't for the Bommarito Auto Group, who actually own the old shop building now, if it wasn't for their support, and then I think the city of Hazelwood, it seemed like the fire department cared more about us than anybody else. We, like you said, it just wasn't a community event. It just happened to be a Bigfoot event that a chunk of the community and the fan community would rally around. But this was a whole different thing. This clearly is one of the marquee events that community looks forward to every year. And, it becomes harder and harder to top yourself each year. But as long as you keep delivering, good fun events that are safe every year, you'll have that. So we'll talk about some of the trucks that were, spaced out around the property and get into the little of the old school nerdy side of things. There was a absolute A-list celebrity guest list of, former and current monster truck types that were there. But before we even get to that, we would be remiss if we didn't build on your point a little bit, Jean, just complimenting, everybody that's at Bigfoot right now, that we all got to, and you did work, right? You brought a truck and other guys brought trucks. Terry brought a fleet of trucks. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, but ultimately putting on and hosting these events is where you see, really a lot of the sweat equity go into making things work right. So, you got to give a shout out to everybody at the Bigfoot organization from the top on down that, pulled that off. And, these guys aren't on the road this weekend. They weren't traveling and still they were probably working just as hard, if not harder, than what they'd have to work, out on the road running a truck. So, really, really cool stuff. So props to them on that. Well done. Oiled machine, and it ran smooth. But Jean, apart from yourself, there were some other A-list celebs there. So who did you get a chance to run into that you really enjoyed getting to talk to?
Gary Collins with the Budweiser boss, and recently unfortunately he had a fire and he lost everything in that, including a lot of history with the Bud Boss pulling machine, a lot of trophies, a lot of collectibles that he had. And he actually teared up when he was talking to me and my wife, Susan, about it. So, and he's made the truck up there a couple times, but to see him, that was really cool. I was actually shocked about the deal with Army. I would never have imagined that Army would be there, and he was there for 2 days, and he was being the Army was. Every time he'd be by the truck, he'd grab kids and say, "Hey, this is Colt Cobra from Cobra Creek, Colorado. Here, let him tell about the truck," and that was pretty neat. Of course, excuse me, Roy Hoosier from the Bigfoot days. He made the truck over. I was shocked. I mean, usually it's the same people year after year, but Roy, Kenny, and Janice Oliver, I didn't get a chance to meet her. Of course, people know that she used to drive the Ranger for a while, and then
Yep.
she moved into Bigfoot number 2. Supposedly, some of the guys from Jerseyville came down, but I didn't get to see them.
I heard Donnie Brightweiser was there. Jim told me, but I didn't get a chance to meet him. I was really wanting to meet him.
I didn't get a chance to see him. There were some guys from like MSD that was there.
Spike was there. Yeah.
Yes, there. So, and I, of course, Eric Tack, and we don't get a chance, don't make it to the Hall of Fame. So it was kind of an eclectic group of even former Bigfoot employees that was there. But I think just in general, like the old school guys do a great job. Gary Porter showed up, just out of the blue. And I'm just like, all it is a Bigfoot open house, but to have people like house that come to check things like that out. And you said it your best, Kyle. I mean, you live in, Wyoming. Of course, you had to fly. But even Porter, it's not like you just get up that morning and you're going to drive across town, decide to go.
Right.
So that was a plus. And, I mean, we stood there and probably talked for 30, 45 minutes. We had a lot of people from West Virginia that have been following us for quite a while. We met some friends there last year from Wisconsin. They came down to it again. The hotel leaving, there was people from Oregon that flew out here for it. So, I mean, as far as A-listers, I mean, I just think the fans, all of them are A-listers. To see the entourage that Terry brought was just over the top, too. And, I mean, to put it all together in a short amount of time, and we talked on the phone, and you could hear it in his voice. He was really struggling to try to get everything together. And he was facing the same thing we did with 4. Excuse me, but he had 5 or 6 trucks. So I can imagine that.
No, I think it was really impressive. And, I said on Monday morning when I recorded with Jim Kramer at his kitchen table for the Jim Kramer fan portal on Facebook, just having, conversations with Kramer type stuff. A lot of people don't maybe remember or recall that Terry ran Bigfoot bodies from time to time back in the day on his Cyclops chassis, helping out in a pinch. That might have been one of the very first Chevy powered Bigfoot trucks, I guess, if you wanted to get really technical about it. But the work, like the obviously the love, the respect, the sweat that they put into the what I'm calling Bigfoot 1A or one alternate, whatever you want to call it, and Bigfoot 2 as it's been such rebuilt, those things look spectacular. I mean, those things. I was trying to explain to Matt before you got on the call with us and we started recording. I was like, it was easy to tune the fact out that those trucks were sitting there and that Bigfoot 3 was sitting there, because they've been, as fans, at least for me, they've been absent from our reality for decades, really. And so it's like they weren't even real. It's like they were just replicas that were built and they were really, really cool. And then you remembered, no, there's like real ass legitimate parts, real heart, real soul, real pieces on those trucks. And then you walk back over to them for the 5th or your 6th time and you're just nosing around. You're like, God dang, this is really, really cool. Like, I want to hear him fire up and I want to see him go run through the Black River in Westerville. And then I want to see him go up the Big Eliminator. And then I want to see him go over cars. Like, I want to see him do all the things that they were supposed to do, And none of that's disrespect to what we call Bigfoot 1. Bigfoot 1 has been Bigfoot 1 for at least since 1986, 87 in the condition that it's in now. So to me, it's the bloodline of a race car, right? Not every race car is going to keep the same rear ends or the same motor or the same body on it, but parts and pieces get separated and reused and things like that. So in my mind, if Bigfoot 1 was able to be the original donor of parts that led to that truck that is now Bigfoot 2 and Bigfoot 1 alternate and Bigfoot 1. Well, that's pretty badass if you ask me, because I would take 3 Bigfoot trucks over one single Bigfoot truck any day. So credit to Terry on that. And then let's talk about a couple, we know the Shuttle was there, the Ranger was there, the Fast Tracks 2.0 was there. The still remaining fleet of contemporary Bigfoot trucks was there. Dan Runty drove the all-new Bigfoot 24 turnkey Patrick chassis truck, looked and sounded great. And I mean, I didn't have seeing Dan drive ever again on my bingo card, so that was a pretty awesome, perk to the weekend. But Gunslinger was there. How do we not mention, the late Scott Hartsock, somebody that loved and respected, what Bigfoot did. He was a Ford guy himself, and we lost him far too early a few years ago. And so with the new owners of that truck, bringing it, I was shocked to see Gunslinger there, but I was really proud of how nice it looked. I was proud of where they put it. And I think it was really a class move on the part of Bigfoot to let that truck have its spot, as kind of a tip of the cap to Scott right up in front of the shop there.
Yeah. Well, and I think even prior to that, Johnny K reached out to me like about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he was actually on the fence about bringing Buffalo Trimmer out there.
Oh,
so
wow.
there was a lot of people that were interested in making it, like you just said that, or earlier we talked about the Jamboree atmosphere. They're willing to bring their trucks out to show them off too, because they knew that it was a captive audience. But I didn't really get the goosebumpy hair stuff when I seen all the trucks parked there. Right next to the Porta Johns and see where they put Snakebite over there. I thought, well, we're going to be too far away from the action. But there was plenty of people there all day long. And with the big Jumbotron they had set up, it was really cool. But then about what? I don't know, maybe 10:30. I don't know what time you got there, Kyle. There was that long-haired hippie freak guy from up there in Canada that Mike and started putting decals on those trucks.
Yeah.
I thought that was the icing right there, because then you saw and you felt it legitimately there. Bigfoot 1, Bigfoot 2, all that really started making it real then. And because a casual observer would just see it as what you mentioned a while ago. It just looked like a remake of a Bigfoot truck. But then when those decals went on the side of it, you knew you were in the house of royalty then.
Yep. Well, and then to add to what you just said, decals and fender flares and side mirrors are going on those trucks. And then you've got Jim Kramer and Bob Chandler themselves driving out for opening ceremonies in current Bigfoot 1 to present the colors for the national anthem and things like that. And, it's been a long, long time, I gather, since Bob has driven Bigfoot 1. There's no need for him to, of course. He's got his own thing going on. But, Jim was telling me Monday, even he felt pretty wowed by the moment and even a little choked up in the cab of number 1 when they pulled out. And he was reminding Bob, all right, pull the power on and, turn the fuel pump on, then kick it over. And then, the ratchet shifters wore out in it. So fiddle with that, hit second gear. And, the front one's the hood, the back switch is the rear steering on the door type stuff. Just a quick refresher course from the world's greatest monster truck driver to the creator of the world's greatest monster truck brand, in my opinion. And Jim even said he's like, I kind of reached over and I patted Bob on the knee, and I was just like, this is pretty cool, man. And for two guys that have seen so much cool stuff, done so much cool stuff in my weird little world, Jim Kramer wrote the book on what cool means. So for those guys to tell me it was still cool to drive out in a blue truck in front of a bunch of fans, I mean, how do you beat that, right?
Well, I get emotional every year. I really do, as long as I can keep, without having to be in a wheelchair to go there, because they truly were. They set the bar pretty high. And I was very fortunate as a young child to capture Bigfoot's first car crash here in Jefferson City, Missouri. And I had a 35 millimeter camera, and I snapped all these pictures. And it was he drove it to the show from the Ford dealer in town, and I left work early and I took these pictures, and they're all over the internet, now. You can find them, and it was John Breen's Mad Dog truck beside him, and they were pulling trucks around. It was a pull at Capitol Speedway in Jeff City, and when Bob tried to go over those two cars, and the one car pushed out, and he's in there just floorboarding it, and John Breen's smiling. He's just having the time of his life. And I thought, wow, what a way, and then flash forward there till I'm working for them. And, even when you were probably there, I mean, we took so much I won't say too much for granted, but, we used to pull the Ranger out every day when we had tires on it, or the Shuttle, or any other truck that had 66s, because it was considered a display day. If it was there, Bob wanted them out front so people could stop in. He's always been the showman. And then you go back now and you see all this, and you know that you're a part of that, just a small pimple of that history. But I mean, it's such a huge, huge world, but yet it was so tiny back then. And I mean, yeah, when Jim told me he was trying to tell Bob how to start the truck up, I was just laughing. I was like, okay, yeah, I'd like to be in there for that. Bob always tells me, yeah, and we've talked recently about just his road travels and stuff like that. Not so much about monster trucks anymore, because several years ago we were at Butler at the museum. And I guess maybe we were in Auburn, and it was during the Thursday, Friday discussions, and my wife Susan and myself and Bob and several other Bigfoot people, we were just chit-chatting like we're talking now. And I just made the comment, or my wife made the comment, about all these stories we're even talking about tonight, and a little bit that we're just scratching the surface. And I said, yeah, today's modern driver, the fleet drivers, and Kyle, you know what a fleet driver is. They don't have stories like this, and they'll never have stories like this. Their stories are how they missed their flight and they had to call somebody at the office to get their flight changed. They just can't. And to be where we were at Saturday, and to live that and feel all that, I mean, it all just kind of just keeps growing and keeps coming back, and it brings you back to being a kid again. And that's what I really enjoy. I mean, I don't like it on Monday morning when I got to get up, but it was really, really, really cool.
I was talking to Chris Ludwig, and Chris and I, got to work together quite a bit. Before I went on the road full time as a driver, I was working up front, and at the time we still had Midwest 4-wheel drive, trying to operate out of those two smaller front bays at 6311. So I was in there. I had some background in some of that stuff, working for Greg Adams, before I came to Bigfoot, doing lift kits and things like that. And, Chris is immensely more talented than me in every way mechanically. So he was an excellent resource for me to, further my chops with and everything. But he's such a great old school fan too. I mean, that guy has a memory as sharp as anybody's when it comes to old school stuff. He loves it. He knows it. I mean, he's the best kind of fan. He's also the best kind of coworker you could have. And I still maintain to this day he could have been the next Dan Runte if his life path would have taken him to where he was going to be a full-time driver all the time. Having said all that, Chris and I always used to joke if we'd go to lunch with Kramer or one of the other old hands, or we used to bump into Kenny Kelling over at Mattingly's at lunch sometimes, and we'd just talk their ear off. Tell us about what happened here. Tell us about that. And I'm sure we annoyed the piss out of them, but they always gave us the time of day, which was nice. And I told Chris again Saturday, I said, dude, we were born 20 years too late. Like, we should have been there back in the mid to late 80s with these guys doing this stuff, because that's where our hearts are, is in that realm. And when Chris and I were doing this stuff, even we were losing touch with those story making opportunities that y'all had back in the day. I mean, we certainly have our brand of stories, but they're different than even what your generation and stuff had from back in the early days. And now, the industry's changed. It takes fly-in drivers to make fleet shows work, and we get that. But we almost, and I'm not trying to speak for you, Gene, but I think you'll agree with me, and Looker, I think you'll probably agree too. It's not that we're making fun of y'all for being fleet drivers. Good on you, because you're driving and none of us are. But we just feel bad for you that you didn't get to have some of the road experiences that we've gotten to have. You'll never have a moment like when you're tired as hell, you've been up 24 hours, you're fueling the rig at a truck stop in the middle of the night, and some truck driver comes up behind you and slaps you on the back. Hey, Bigfoot, you got any hats in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
and you
Well,
find
I
it
would,
inside of you to smile and bite your tongue and tell them no, you can go to bigfoot4x4.com/merchandise and get all your hats.
I would be a fly-in driver, even maybe 10 years ago, but I'm pretty sure I don't fit the current demographics of what they want, in a driver. But I would have loved to make that bar or make that transition because hats off to them, Cody Saucier and all those guys. I mean, they do a great job at the track. And one more guy I think we're missing out on too that was there at the Bigfoot, Eli Mann with number 3.
Yeah. Yep.
He struggled with that truck, just and I mean, he's not sitting on a throne of money, So he did everything he could and to bring it out, and I think it really encouraged him to continue with the path
Yeah.
that he has, And you got Chris Gibson with the Ranger who rescued the Ranger. I mean, it was in total disarray, and he was getting down, and after the first year and not making any progress, and then he gets a hold of BFT, Heath Paget, and then they work night and day, much like we were on 4, and they bring it back to where it's at. So they knew what they had. You just had to get it in the right to make it work. And I think that goes without saying with all the Terry's fleet, and back to when Francis even had those vehicles. And I don't know if you were at Foot when they built the clone Francis or not, but I mean, for years Francis. God, I envied Francis. He's Shadow. You got a clone. You got this off-road truck. You've got this. And damn, I'm afraid to back my old Chevy out of the garage. Because this guy's got all this stuff. And we years, but so it's pretty cool that I think everybody. Yeah, the 50th was really great, and I would like to see him bring them back from year after year. But I mean, everybody, that was their dream too, as a kid, possibly. And they might have seen Bigfoot back in the day like I did. And you just gravitate back to that all the time. I'm not a big hot rodder. My boy's got a big jacked up Suburban with suicide doors and all that stuff. And I go to car shows, but monster trucks are always going to be in my blood, and that's just it. It's just, even though it was 12 years, it was 12 plus years when I quit, and I was going to some of the Monster Jam deals and pulling wrenches for Cody and them. I mean, it just brought back the passion. And even Cody made that comment one time at the Dome, 1:30 in the morning, and I'm over there trying to stitch his body back together. And he says, like, you'll be doing this to your, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, because that's the way I am. And he says, I wish you could teach a lot of the younger guys this way. It's just a passion from top to bottom, front to back. You got to do whatever it takes to get the truck out and do the show.
No, absolutely you do. And I think that same sort of determination is what motivated so many people to come back for the 50th anniversary, whether it was people like Eli that were, I don't want to say shoestring budget. I don't mean to imply that, but I mean, he was operating under different, constraints than what Terry was, let's say. And that's not mean or unfair to say. Facts is facts. And I think he did a kick-ass job with everything he's had as far as time and space to work with and all that stuff. The fact that, anyone would sit back and criticize what he did, but they themselves hadn't lifted even so much a finger to help that cause, then they have no room to talk. I mean, it's one thing to objectively talk about a driver's driving, even if you're not a driver, because facts are in front of you and you can say, well, it wasn't his best freestyle, or, well, he should have hit the vans faster. That's just objectively analyzing performance, which that's a pundit's job and it's kind of a fan's job. But as far as rescuing a piece of history like what Eli has done and fixing it back up, that's not even a clinical exercise in just dissecting something. That is a passion project. That is love for the name, for the brand, for the truck. And it's one of the least, how do I put this? It's probably one of the least accomplished, but most loved Bigfoot trucks, because it never really, it came along too late in the exhibition era, and it wasn't really built to go be a kick-ass race truck. So it just kind of did its job as a role player. But we all know that truck's super beloved because it was unique. It was a show truck. It had the Hemi motor in it at one point. It's just a cool, unique piece of history. And the fact that Eli rescued it, I mean, we're down to just a couple more Bigfoot trucks need to be rescued, and we might be down to the last 3 hardest ones too. We're going to have to go to Egypt, Brazil, and the strange third world nation known as Central Florida to get these things and bring them back.
Number 3, when it ran at Hemi, just like you said, when I drove it, there was all them quirks you had to learn about, and that 429 used to get hot fast. So you had, there wasn't none of this idling around trying to get turned around in some of these small arenas that we all did back then. You had to really be on your game to learn how to drive that. And I think that's what you just said, hit it right off, but it was very iconic when it came out, of course, with the duels when they had it in Pontiac. And Andy ran it a lot. I mean, and he got the most out of that truck. And a lot of drivers did, but he probably was in it the most. But those were like what we call trainer trucks, and then you just kept steadily moving up. And it's great to see them back out there. I think they could perform with the old school guys just as well. If we'd nut bolt everything and just like that's our saying at Monster Jam, nut and bolt everything and go out there and kudos what you said earlier, like all the old school guys for the elements that they were running in. I thought they did a kick-ass job. They all have to run the radios. They all have to run the RIs. So, it's a legitimate deal. It's not just some guy unloading this mega truck and going out there and flying 300 feet through the air and wad it all up and say, look at me. I mean, those guys put on a kick-ass performance too, along with Runte. And, so I hope it continues on. I really do. I hope those type of shows. I know the Darnells were doing a big show down in Miami, Oklahoma.
Yep.
You guys had going on in Joliet. So it's hard to pick a date when you want to get a captive audience. But, I mean, hats off since COVID. After COVID, I didn't even know if we'd be doing monster truck events anymore,
Yep.
really. And guys like Elliot and you guys have all stepped it up. You've got a lot more shows if you're an independent to pick from now. You're not just backed into a closet for one place. And I mean the audiences I've been seeing at the Cretan shows and Elliott shows and Darnell shows, I mean it's like great, and the fans know what they're getting when they get there. They're not, they're not hiding behind their phones, typing on the keys, should have been doing this or shouldn't have been doing that. They're just happy seeing monster trucks. And I just hope it continues to grow like it did in the late, the early 80s, and we get back to that era again.
Well, there's a good point you brought up there about Dan driving out there and the old school trucks performing out there. There was a couple guest drivers, I guess you would say, in contemporary trucks that ran in the exhibition area as well. And I want to shout out to, Roger Gauger with his personal monster truck that is contract bodied as a Bigfoot truck. Quadzilla is the name I'll always associate with Roger. But he had some seriously buffed down Firestone tires, for racing on that truck. And it was that stinky, greasy, Missouri mud out there. And he was not getting anywhere, and it was not for lack of talent or lack of trying. Certainly a quality piece and a guy that knows how to drive it. That poor guy even Runny slid off into the trees a few times. I thought he had picked up arborism as a bit of a hobby on the side as he's winding down his career. He was, bird spotting or something. I'm not sure. But apparently he had the right combination of wheelbase, tire cut, and youth. But Colton Kaiser did a great job in the high roller monster truck out there. I thought he whipped that thing around really well. He was smooth and he was safe, but he put on a pretty exciting show. Those guys absorbed a little bit of body damage on that unit and just put on a good show for the crowd out there. There was multiple people running kill radios on both sides of the event. Nobody was making big hits towards the people. Ample opportunity to spray 10 rows deep with that shit-ass smelling mud. And nobody did that either. So sometimes discretion is the better part of valor, when it comes to some of these events. So, I certainly credit them on having a safe performance area there as well, too. So hopefully we didn't lose Jean altogether there, but it wouldn't be, what are we now, 0 episodes since we've had something shit the bed technically on Bottom Dead Center. So we'll get him back on. But So I wanted to, there's so many shout outs we have to send out there, and I hope it doesn't sound like I'm droning about it too much, but there was just so many bases to cover. A couple others that I was going to touch on. Jean mentioned the Miami, Oklahoma show for MAP or MAP, however they care to say it. I apologize if I'm supposed to say it said out loud, letter by letter, or if I just use the word as it's spelled. But in any event, the Monster Blog guys were celebrating their 20th anniversary down there with Tim Jones of Tailgater fame running a TMB 20th anniversary body, which was really cool looking. A lot of us that have done stuff for the blog over the years, or guys like me that, have come and gone from the Monster Blog story, seeing Tim Jones's truck with a tailgate full of names on it, including the names of so many of us that contribute to the blog, was a very heartfelt and sweet gesture by them. And I just have to say again to Ross and Regina and the Monster Blog crew, I appreciate that. Danny Moss that works, kind of in a multimedia capacity for Bigfoot and also for different promoters and stuff. I mean, he was driving back and forth, from Miami to the St. Louis area and stuff, just, trying to burn up the miles like he was still an 18-year-old kid taking pictures out there. So that was pretty awesome as well, too. Holy cow, Gene. There was so much that went on there. I just keep coming up with talking point after talking point, but let me throw it to you, Looker, because we've kind of left you on the sideline a little on this one. But what's the talk that you might have heard, from a few hours down the road in Joliet, where people talking or kind of following what was being seen on the internet or anything like that with regards to what we had going at the open house?
Give me that white truck.
I mean, to be clear, I was enjoying listening to you guys talk, so no offense taken at all. Especially here in the history of 4, that's pretty sweet. I mean, Bigfoot Open House is always cool. I've never been. I feel like I'm always doing a show that weekend, plus it's not right down the road. I think it'd be like a 15-hour drive for me if I were to drive out there. It looked really cool, seeing all the old iron, which it's hard to call it old iron because it was all restored. Seeing all that and hearing both of you say it felt like a jamboree, that I think has got to be the top compliment that you could give to a show that was less of a monster truck show and more of a gathering. I think saying that it felt like a jamboree is amazing to hear from two guys that know what should go into an event like that. It's always cool seeing the trucks put on a little bit of a show there in a safe manner, which from a show standpoint, that is not always easy to find when you're not in a performance venue like the back lot of a shop. But it looked like it was entertaining and safe. And I think it gives, like you were talking about Runte becoming an arborist, it gives a little bit more credence to how terrible the driving conditions were when a guy like Dan Runte gets it off into the weeds, once or twice trying to drive around.
Those weren't weeds; those were perfectly healthy trees, and he might have been able to walk me through a number of species that they were.
Big weeds. Okay, you're right.
Big weeds, no doubt.
Even just a few of us were talking about seeing Bigfoot 2 and 3 out there, and of course Snakebite. Just really cool isn't the right word for it. Just a well done event. Hats off to Bigfoot. I know we had a discussion a few episodes ago about who the actual first monster truck was, and I think we landed on Bigfoot being the first one that made them monster trucks to the general public. So kind of a celebration of half a century of monster trucks, and seeing Bob Chandler out there. I've only met him a couple times. I don't really know him, but seeing him, kind of still doing his thing with the fans is also really cool to see. Just looked like a really cool event. I'd love to go some year, but the 50th, I think it did it justice to being the 50th anniversary from where I'm sitting.
I don't think I was on site 5 minutes before I was like, wow, I would have kicked my own ass repeatedly if I wouldn't have tried to make the trip out here. And Gene, let's talk real talk for a second, right? We both spent our time in the business. We worked for different teams besides just Bigfoot. Things aren't always peachy sometimes between you and who you're working for. You and I are both hired guns, right? We aren't family members. We're not part of the bloodline. We were hired to do a job, and we came and we went. In your case, you came back, in a different stint and things like that. There's ample opportunity for guys like us, to have just walked away from it permanently and not tried to stay attached to the name and some of what we accomplished there and things like that. And there's also ample opportunity to maybe just not be welcomed back, right? Like, not everybody has to say, yes, bring Bigfoot 4. Yes, you can come back and hang out or whatever. I'm not saying they would. I'm saying in alternate universes, maybe things don't always work out the same, but there's just something kind of magic about the Bigfoot name. And if you were a part of the story, and you come back and you participate in it, I mean, it was immensely gratifying to be, I felt like welcomed back by, the powers that be there. And also just getting to see my friends that I worked with when I was there that I haven't had a chance to see in a hell of a lot of years. And then when all of us were asked to step up to the announcer stage, and, like I said, on Jim's show the other day, I was back in the back where I was supposed to be. And I didn't even realize it until I looked at the pictures. I was standing next to Dave Woodcock. And I'm like, I have an autograph on a chunk of snake bite body from Dave, which is pretty funny from my teenage years. But I'm looking at all you guys, you real Bigfoot drivers, you, John Pyatt, Eric Tack, Kenny Kelly, and of course Kramer and Runty and all these other guys. And I'm thinking, man, there is some firepower and talent, in those hands down there. Or in your case, in the right foot, there's some firepower there too. We know that. But what struck me even more though is like I'm looking at you guys and I'm thinking as a selfish fan about how cool it is to be around y'all. But then I look out over this sea of fans and everybody's basically wearing blue. And I said to Jim on his show, I said, we've all been to monster truck shows where Bigfoot was a favorite or where maybe we didn't do as well as we wanted. Not everybody was cheering for us. You're never going to have 100% loyalty from the audience wherever you perform. And that's to be expected. That's just realism. But this is like the home team, right? This is everybody there was there because they wanted to be, because they unequivocally, support that name, support that brand, support the team. And that was just, I didn't even really have the capacity to process the emotions in that moment. I still don't think I have. So kind of what was your perspective of that while we were standing up there and, Bob kind of gave a little bit of his speech. What were your thoughts?
Well, to hear Fred get choked up, that was, and Fred's a big fan. He's a big fan, and he's also a monster truck owner. He owns the number 4. So I could hear his voice crack. Yep. Yeah, I could hear his voice cracking, and that was something. At first, it was portrayed as I thought they said that former drivers or as old people, and I really don't even know a lot of the new ones, and some of them might have been there a month, some of them might have been there for 2 years or longer, and my wife worked there, and I didn't even think about her. And actually, she got up there. Bob grabbed her and put her up there. And going back and looking at the pictures, now you see all those people that made such a difference. And, back in the early years, I mean, obviously, I started with John Breen. We had a dually and a gooseneck, and we didn't go west. And, when you went to work for Bigfoot, you went everywhere. And that, Kyle. And Andy and I used to call us the elite fleet, and everybody looked up to us. But I think we made all the teams better. And there's been a lot of teams that haven't lasted or stood the test of time. Hall Brothers being one of them. Dan Patrick. I mean, and the Kohlers. And, I mean, those guys are still out there, and they're still hustling up and down the highways, and they're making a good living at it. And there's probably more that escapes me right now, but those are the two that really come to mind. I mean, when the Ram sponsorship came in with Tim and Mark, and I mean, it really elevated them to the next level, and they've always been a true contender. I mean, they're racers at heart. They know what it takes. They've been on the road. They're not, they're not trying to buy their way down the highway, I guess you could say. And it was emotional to the point that anytime I get around Bob, I just get emotional because I can remember when he interviewed me, and him and Jim are the ones that hired me. And I still get flashed back to that when I'm around him, and it's just cool to know that I took those pictures way back when, and know I was a kid reading the magazines, and then you actually get, to be there. It's really something special. I mean, I showed Dan Runte how to drive monster trucks, And I mean, he's still there, and he carries that same passion. He might not act like it, but I know it's there. We had another super fan. He'll be there going on 2 years, I think, and Caleb Janet. I can't even pronounce his last name.
Caleb Janezich, I think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I hope I got it right. He's such a good guy.
Yeah, and his dad's name is Jean, so it's like
Yep.
me, and he was a super fan. He came to the Jamboree probably 4 or 5 years ago. My first time back at any Jamboree in like over 20 years, and he laid all this stuff out, and you could just hear the passion in him. And then when they were opening up for interviews, and I called Bob Trent up, and they never called him, and he was getting very down. He's like, "Why won't they call me? Why won't they call me?" And it's they got to go through a process. I mean, they still do a few displays. Obviously, we lost one of the greatest with Ron Bachman,
Yep.
who was our display king, and it's just a tough pill to swallow, even to see the cardboard cutout of him up there. But I mean, he elevated monster trucks in general. It wasn't just about Bigfoot, I mean, he was doing Firestone and Ford displays and taking these trucks to the masses. So, but just to be there with all of you guys, and to know that you carried it on, and it was, me and you, we don't, stay in touch regularly because you're an ass, but it's been
Yes.
pretty cool to see. It's really cool to see the path that your journey took you after Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of guys that have went on different ways, and now we find ourselves talking about that. I mean, hell, Ken Kelly and I are talking about Medicare and Medicaid. We're not. It's just stuff like that. But we went to Kramer's birthday party a few months ago, and Runte was there, and we hardly even talked about monster trucks.
Yeah.
And it's just a family that's your extended family. Jerry Richmond used to say it, it's the family reunion that you want to go to. It's your high school reunion you want to go to, these monster truck things. And we might be a small group, but we have a larger footprint across the whole country and the world than people realize.
We do, and I realize I'm getting, not only am I an ass, which I've perfected over the last 40 years, but I'm getting to be an old ass too, because so Heath Paget with BFT, I remember Heath being a squeaky clean high school kid that would come in summer at the Chandler's home, during the summer months between grades of school, and, we're all a bunch of, sweaty monster truck working on rocket rollers out there. And he'd come in his clean cowboy boots and a belt buckle the size of a dinner plate that was, probably weighing him down because he's a tall, skinny, scrawny kid. And, never thought much of it other than, you're a hardcore fan and you're pretty damn lucky if you get to stay at Bob's house all summer. But look at what he's done. He's become an excellent fabricator. He's built a kick-ass truck of his own. He's had such a guiding hand and presence in restoring something like the Ranger. That's exactly the person you want doing that work. You don't want to be outsourcing that work if you don't have to a random hot rod shop in Hollywood hoping they pay close attention to the pictures. You want a guy, just like what you and Lonnie and the guys did with number 4. If Roy ran the battery cables a certain way, Roy did it because he had a reason for it. And even if he didn't have a reason for it, it was Roy's reason for doing it. So run the damn battery cable 3 foot longer than it needs to be and stop asking questions. He's the kind of guy that's going to take note of things like that and do them right. I think about Caleb. I remember Caleb and his dad, Jean, being around us at, some of the bigger shows in the Midwest, coming to open houses, things like that. And, they were just fans. And now the fact that, Caleb's driving a truck, again, those are the people you want, in my mind, representing that name, or people that care about that name. Wherever we've all been with the name at one point or not in our career, we've always cared about the damn trucks. We've cared about the name. We've cared about the legacy. And that's kind of that thread that ties us all together. My greatest contribution to monster trucks, certainly at Bigfoot, was not my driving. I mean, I did okay. And that's about all there is to say about it. But, getting the opportunity to write about the trucks to the depth that I did and bring so much more of the history to the forefront, doing the Vault DVD project is kind of a moving force behind that. That was all the stuff that I just know my fellow fans want to see things like that too. And so I was talking to Jason Rivas, shout out, part of Freedom Racing, Terry Woodcock's operation. He rode out with the trucks, and Jason stopped and was talking to me before I had to get out of there. And he was, thanking me for what we're doing with OSMT and stuff. And I'm likewise returning thanks. You're opening up Terry's archives and putting some cool stuff out there. But I told him my hope is that whatever tiny little crack in the dam that stuff like the Vault DVD did in 2010, so 15 years ago, that crack is widening out now into where the dam's about to really break, I think, in terms of people getting into their personal collections that they've kept stored away or they've forgotten about or they've chosen not to release. And this stuff is really starting to flow forward now. And we saw the Taurus DVD a few years ago. We saw the King Kong DVD a couple years ago. I think more and more of this stuff's going to keep coming because why the hell do all the other motorsports get to tell their stories? Why do they get to document their histories? Why do they get fancy museums? And all we get is an occasional argument about, whether or not we can digitize a VHS tape and put it on YouTube. Those things are what's going to carry us forward in terms of expressing our history and documenting it to the current and existing fan base. But I think it's going to help engage more fans through the internet. And they're going to be so damn curious they can't help but go to a show, And I know I just got on a soapbox there, but if a little kid sees a monster truck crushing cars on the internet and it takes him to a Hot Wheels show or a Throwdown show, a Toughest Monster Truck show, a Monster Jam show, whatever the case is, if he's looking for cars at Monster Jam, he could get a little disappointed, as you alluded to earlier. But the fact of the matter is we got to get people back out to the shows and then keep them coming to the shows. So whatever it takes to do that, and if it's putting archival stuff on, YouTube and platforms like that, then I'm 1,000% in support of that. The other thing I want to say,
I think what yourself, you've elevated it in the last few years yourself, and what you said about the vault, and even when Scott Douglas was during the COVID and he was doing his podcast, it brought light to a lot of different things, and you saw a lot behind the scenes. Sam Michelson's right now, he's been writing some stuff for the past 2 years. We've had in-depth conversations. So I think in the future, there's going to be more coming out. And it's going to be more than the guy that walks up and buys a ticket just because it's a monster truck show.
Right.
I think Elliot, everything usually, not everything, I guess I shouldn't say it like that, but it kind of leads back to Bigfoot. I mean, Elliot look where he's taken Throwdown at. I mean, and it's become an event that you want to attend, and he doesn't try to make something. He does his own event, he does his show, take it or leave it. This is what it is, and he doesn't try to impress nobody. But he knows what kind of product he needs to put out there. And he's learned from others. And it goes back to, like I said earlier, about the Hall brothers and everything they've done. And I think the monster trucks are fun. They went down low again, and now they're starting to rise up like the Phoenix, and everything's going to start. I'd say in the next 5 to 6 years, it's going to just be like it was when monster trucks first started out. You won't be able to get enough of it. There's going to be so much documentation out there, and from the Marty Garza books, and I think we're just scratching the surface now with all the social media platforms that are out there that people are interested. I just finished the Prime thing on the Earnhardt, and I was just blown away at the stuff I learned about that. But it took somebody from the outside to come in and tell that story, and I think that's what ours needs, or somebody that's been involved in it, much like yourself.
Well, I think it might take outside money and some outside talent to tell the story, but look at Dale Jr. I mean, he's a homegrown talent, and he's probably the greatest multimedia ambassador for the sport of stock car racing in terms, I mean, that guy's pretty crazy about how much his show during COVID, Lost Speedways. It's a shame that isn't still happening. I mean, that was such a brilliant show. But you talk about COVID and we talk about Bigfoot specifically here, the two guys that hired me at Bigfoot were Bob Trent and Jim Kramer. And, I have a long-standing friendship with Kramer, and, we talk here and there and all that kind of stuff. But I reached out to Bob during COVID, and I said, hey, man, we just bought some shirts off the website. This is when trucks weren't running I think Hot Wheels was doing like the drive-through petting zoo style monster truck experience in places just to keep people coming out and doing, which was a pretty clever idea, honestly. But I reached out and said, hey, man, how are you guys doing? You know, I know there's not really shows going on. You know, I've worked in the beer industry for over a decade now. We're pretty invincible when it comes to things like that. Like, people are having a good time, they drink beer. People are having a shitty time, they drink beer. They're having a time, they drink beer. So like my world wasn't affected necessarily too much, but I thought about all those guys out there in touring entertainment that I knew that were making a living. And of course, you know, he's trying to help run a whole business. And I had said, hey, I know it's not much. We bought a few t-shirts. Hope you guys are doing all right. And he's like, you know, we're trying to hang in there, just hoping we can get back to work and get trucks running again. So then when I saw him and got to talk to him on Saturday, you know, boy, do we have a pass. But I told him, I said, you know, by the time COVID was over, I feel like anybody in the monster truck industry could have dropped any concerns they had with each other. As long as everybody can get back to working and doing it safely and paying their light bill, then we should just be happy that there's trucks out there running. And a huge part of me is like a Bigfoot purist, right? I want to see Bigfoot out there qualifying first at the Charlotte Monster Truck Bash, and I want to see it, you know, at the Soaring Eagle Casino Throwdown show, taking a racing win, and I want to see it at the biggest levels possible. And I know sometimes things change, and maybe that's not part of what their business model is, but I would say a Bigfoot truck spearheading all of these super family-friendly Hot Wheels Monster Truck live shows that drive people to bring their little ones to these shows. I mean, in some ways, Bigfoot's job now is to be an incubator that grows a fan from the very start, and then helps build them up into maybe more of a lifelong fan instead of just a casual fan that only goes to one show a year. So if what they're doing at Hot Wheels Monster Truck Live gets parents, you know, taking their kids to more shows as they get older and things like that, then you would have to argue that that work is just as important in its own right as going out and, you know, clearing a 90-foot double at a big ass race at Charlotte. It's not the same thing. That maybe doesn't mean as much to the hardcores, but I'm about like 0.0001% of the fan base where, you know, my neighbors have 4 kids, and God bless them. I don't know how the hell they do that, but they've got 4 kids. And if they can take 4 kids to a Hot Wheels Monster Truck Live show and they all have a good time and they buy some swag and they want to come and do it again next year, or they hear about another show and they go to that, hey, let's just take the wins how we can get them and pay the damn light bill, you know?
I agree.
Yeah.
Mike,
I agree. I work with a lot of parents at my healthcare job at the hospital, and that Hot Wheels deal, there is not one family. I mean, I'm sure there are, because you never have perfect, but people that I know that go, they all love it. And the kids aren't there to see hardcore racing. The kids are there to see loud, larger-than-life trucks crushing cars, which is what we started out as, right? So the purists don't like Hot Wheels because it's, you know, less of a performance motorsport event and it's for kids. Well, yeah, those are the target audience, guys. So, yeah, I agree. We should take the wins where we can get them, and Hot Wheels is definitely one of them. And there's other shows to go to. A lot of arenas get a Monster Jam or a Toughest show first quarter, and they also have a Hot Wheels show later in the year. So, yeah, it's definitely a win wherever we can get them.
Well, hey, let's not forget at the very peak, arguably, of Bigfoot's popularity in the 1987 time frame, we did have Jim Kramer and Bigfoot 6 pretending to do a legitimate tug-of-war against Sergeant Slaughter and a bunch of recruited muscle dummies from the local gym.
Yes.
So,
Back
I
on the rope.
mean, you can't... Yeah, back on the rope. He jumped a gun on Mama Battalion. You cannot argue that there's not enough legitimacy at Hot Wheels now. When some of those shows, Gene, I've seen the footage cover to cover, some of those shows, Jim only ran over the frickin' cars like one time, did the tug of war against the roid raging muscle dummies, and then that was the show. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I'd have felt so gypped in a situation like that. So at least they're running over cars all night long at Hot Wheels Monster Truck Live. But Gene, was there any other notes that kind of came to mind as we were talking about open house stuff and starting to wrap that up? Was there anybody we missed? I mean, we didn't even talk about Woodcock having a Wildfoot scheme on his race truck. What'd you think when you saw that?
That was pretty crazy. No, I mean, it's just very fast paced. And last year I stood with the truck with my mask on in most of the day. And of course, it was a typical Missouri day that day. It was like 100 degrees. And people would come up, I just can't believe you're out here. And I'm like, I'm in character, you know. I would take it off. And this year I didn't. I just had the mask on a mannequin. But you, we reconnect afterwards, you know, on the Facebook or on, you got to go on Instagram, whatever, to see all the stuff that you missed. And I wish it was something that wouldn't end. I know all the effort that the Trents and the Bigfoot team put in it. They want it to end because they need to get back to work, you know. But
Yep.
A 2 or 3 day event like that, I mean, I'm just being selfish, you know. It's just it makes you feel good. You know, you forget all your worries. You forget about what's going on in California. You forget about what's going on elsewhere and the tariffs and everything. And that's what monster trucks have always been about. You leave everything outside. You come in and for that 2 hours or whatever it is, it's just you forget about everything. And I mean, I think we've lost track of that just in general, whether it's a baseball game or a hockey games or anything. I mean, we've got to engage more of these younger generation into some of this stuff and get them back to the roots, you know, where life is not about the world ending, you know, live each day like it is the last. But I don't know. It's just a great time. I wish I could take the time to thank everybody that came through there. But I know we brought some new fans in the last couple of years there, and they came back this year. So I feel like I'm doing my part to carry on the tradition. I just hope everybody that's worked with me in the past has forgiven me for being an ass. But
You're forgiven.
I just, yeah, I hope that I hope we continue to grow it, and I hope Bigfoot keeps letting us all be a part of what they've established, and
For sure.
we keep sharing it, you know. So, and I would love to go back to jamborees like they used to be, bringing up jamborees. I think the new team they have in place at the jamborees are wanting to make it back family friendly, and I think we need that. And I think the monster trucks, you know, I would love to see a racing series again. Who wouldn't? There's enough guys out there that have stepped up their games, and they're all looking for that, and they want to do it. But no, I mean, I had a great time. I just wished it wouldn't have ended so soon.
I'm with you 1,000% on that, man. I wish it was like a 3-day deal. That would have been really fun. And I still think we needed an after-hours beer garden for 21 up at the end of the night.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had that at our hotel.
There you go.
Had that over where we were at.
We had that at Kurt's house later that night. And after a few delicious tasting urban chestnut lager beers from St. Louis, that's when I was like, you know, I think everybody at the hotel, they're probably doing the same shit as us. They're drinking some beers, they're laughing, they're watching videos from back in the day of monster trucks. So I said, we got to throw something up on the OSMT channel. So we found a couple blooper reels in my collection that were like outtakes from old home videos. And then I threw one blooper of my own as a driver from one of my in-cabs, and we called it Hotel Beers, Volume 1. So if you haven't checked that out on the OSMT channel yet, you'll have to have some fun with that. There's the soundbite of Gary Porter going, "Look at all that ass," was probably the top moment of all time on a OSMT channel. But as we wind down the talk about the open house, Gene, we'll start to wrap this up pretty soon because I know you need to get on with your evening. But let's touch on a couple quick lighthearted subjects. One of them is me having to admit I've screwed up, and looker, we've made it 2 episodes until now without Monster Wars talk. So it's time to fix that, get our ship back on track, and talk Monster Wars. Gene, why the hell was Snakebite never in Monster Wars? Tell us.
That was after I was gone, and I watched a couple of those, and I thought maybe Scott Douglas was writing all that stuff that used to work for us. Or not Scott Douglas, Scott Johnston.
Scott Johnson, yeah.
Our videos, and here we are trying to get a race truck prepped, and then we're over there 2 minutes later shooting some scene with Hanging Andy from a tire winch crane, and videos are still talked about today. So I don't know that Monster Wars thing. That was way far out there. I mean, they was grasping at straws for that.
I mean, the racing was so good, but the characters were so bad that it just makes it all pretty spectacular in retrospect.
I mean, that wasn't even Saturday Night Wrestling characters that they had.
No. Those were Thursday night at the VFW Bingo Hall wrestlers.
With the 10-foot ceiling, it's guy off the ceiling. You know, that's not far from here. We actually had the Harley Wrestling Academy, and they used to do those kind of events. And it's just like they were shot. Looked like they were shot in your kitchen dining room. You know, it was just like, do people still go see this? And I'm just like, there may be 2 rows deep or something, but there was more people that was trashed out of their minds watching it. And like the wrestling ring looked like it was just some painted barn rope that was tied up. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe they're going to hit the big time off of this. Who knows?
We really needed you to be the snakebite mascot as well. Like a shit-talking Jean Patterson dressed as Colt Cobra. Listen here, Gravedigger, you goddamn bucket of bones. I'm going to come out. You know what I mean? Like, it would have to be family friendly, of course. You know, we wouldn't want you cussing too much, but like you talking some shit out there would have been pretty damn funny, I think.
Well, I think you guys said it earlier too. With right now with the Hot Wheels tour going on, it's a completely different thing. It's a whole different animal. Bob even said I wouldn't like it because of what I used to do, but I you know, I'm waiting on my granddaughter to get old enough that we want to go, because I think it's promoted as a family atmosphere. If you go thinking you're going to see a Monster Jam event, you're going to the wrong event. But you know, if you're going to a hockey game just to see fights, then you're not really a true hockey fan in my book, I guess. So you know, to each its own. And you know, when COVID was going on, hell, I got into the diecast racing. Steve Jones and I started doing that diecast racing, and that's huge.
Was that a drinking game or just for fun?
No, you know, because there wasn't monster truck shows going.
Yeah.
So he's taking those Hot Wheels, you know, and he's setting these courses up, and man, you know, it's like I'd set my phone for the time to get to try to get in. You know, and you'd have like 2 minutes to get your name in. And now he has a roulette wheel that he picks from over probably 50, 60 drivers. And I'm on Teach's team this year. And I think we race again tomorrow night. Last week I made it to the finals. I get fired up, man. I mean, I'm like, oh, wow, I made it to the finals. And then you sit there and you tell people about it, and they're like, what is it? And running some on track. But it's cool. The guy goes to a big production to make this. So it's really neat to see that. I mean, he was looking for something. We were all looking for something to do when COVID was going on. And here comes a guy and he starts racing Hot Wheels. Now there's two or three different racing series with people racing Hot Wheels. And I'm like, why couldn't I think of shit like this?
Well, I'll tell you what kind of shit I need you to think of. We need to do a David Letterman style top 10 list of Colt Cobra's top 10 insults if he had been on Monster Wars.
Okay.
Yes. That's going to be some homework for you.
I'll have to go do some research on the Monster Wars story.
Yeah.
The story.
Listen here, Predator, you spandex wearing fruit. I'd bite you with my fangs, but I'd get perfume on my teeth, you know, like something like that.
It was just a weird deal they were trying to push out there on everybody. So,
well, it's amazing that it was hosted by a former porn star actress too. That's pretty classic.
Kudos to them. You know, it was heartbreaking to see guys like Cody and I keep bringing his name up, but god dang, all the crew guys rolling their toolboxes out when COVID hit.
Oh yeah,
and them were great drivers and great crew people, and they all went off to find something else to do. And sadly, they've never come back to Monster Jam. So it was an era that a lot of us only think about not having toilet paper or something like that. But for monster truck people, it was a big eye-opening experience, and I hope we never have to relive that again. And I think just now we're finally starting to get back to where we once was. And I go back to the Elliots and the dark, all these people that are starting to do shows at dirt tracks all around when all these a lot of dirt tracks closed up,
Yeah.
and they just get people at them. So I really think in the monster truck industry, we're really starting to go back up that other side again, and I hope I can be a part of it for years and years to come.
I agree. We're in a unique position, right? Monster trucks can race just damn near anywhere. And for people trying to keep a static racetrack, a circle track or a drag strip or whatever, trying to keep that facility open is really hard, right? Trying to get people to come back to the same venue and watch essentially the same stuff every week is really, really tough. And so, as monster truck folks, as an industry, we have an obligation, I think, to deliver those venues the very best show we can for the dollar. To help support their business and give them a reason to have us come back, in the year after and the year after and the year after. But also we should be grateful as monster truck, as an industry, we can race just about anywhere. We can race at the dirt track in July, and we can race at the hockey arena in January. We can race at the stadium in April, wherever they'll have us, we can race. And I think you just have to look back to COVID a little bit just a few years ago and remind ourselves of how shitty that was. And now, we think about, we need to be really good stewards of our industry everywhere we go, take care of our customers. That's our fans. But you know what? The buildings are kind of our customers too. We need to take care of those things so we do keep getting invited back. And then that way we can keep having dumb shows like this where we all sit around and talk about how cool everything is. We'd much rather be talking about how cool it was, how cool things are, rather than strictly how cool they were, with nothing contemporary to talk about as well too. So
yeah, but you hit it, Kyle. Look at what NASCAR, not to leave you out, Matt, too, because you look at all the other sport entities that are out there right now, and they're trying to reinvent themselves. I think NASCAR is going through a tremendous rebranding, trying to figure out where they lost their base. NHRA is the same way. Monster trucks don't have to do that.
Right.
They've had one thing they've been selling over the years, and it's not really destruction, but we don't crush cars anymore, but it's been the same product. Yeah, the vehicles have gotten more advanced. I could take or leave this whole stoppy stuff that they do now. The best trick, I know you guys are doing them at your shows too, Matt and you guys, and that's okay. Because it was something new to add to the show format. But when you go to a monster truck show, you pretty much know what you're going to get. You don't have a lot of extra rules forced down your throat, clamping down on the drivers. And these other racing series that I named, it just seems like every year they're trying to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, and we're not. So right now it's prime picking to get out there and go out there and get those fans that were, but we've got to capture the audience, and you got to keep them captivated once you get them. And I blame a lot of that on what we're doing, even here tonight, the social media stuff. A lot of the younger generation don't want to sit there for 2 hours and watch stuff like this. They would rather live stream it and just watch it and then go do something else. And we got to figure out a way to connect to those.
You're not wrong at all on that. We know we're not a very digestible format in this long format series that we do, but I think the cool thing is there, everybody listens to, I shouldn't say everybody, but I mean the most popular music in the world right now, most of the backing tracks of the music are made by, computers and electronics and things like that. But there's always still some guy out there that wants to go buy a repressing of an Iron Maiden album from 1986 because 7-minute heavy metal songs kick ass and they'll never stop kicking ass. So I don't know that OSMT kicks ass yet, or does Bottom Dead Center, but we'll be here when people want to develop the taste for what we're cooking up here. And your stories you've shared tonight are one of the reasons why the show needs to be long. We cannot cram Bigfoot 4 and Snakebite and Jean Patterson and all this stuff. We can't cram that into a 30-second reel on Instagram, and I don't want to either. So the way I look at it, when they're ready to learn a little bit more and expand their minds, we'll be here. We're like side A of an old Rush album. Buckle up for the whole ride, baby.
Hey, you said it right there, buddy. Albums. Yep. And in the last 5 to 7 years, look at the resurgence in vinyl. And I'm a serious vinyl. I won't pay more than $10 for them. I got to draw the line. But, when you go into some of the big box stores now and you see all the new pressings and you see artists repress and stuff, it's that's where monster trucks are at. We're the
Yep.
same way.
Yep.
It's out there, and it's just that feel good stuff. Yeah, I don't even remember the last Rush album I just got here probably a couple months back at an estate sale, and it's just like you just. Of course, we shop for the K-Tel ones,
Mhm.
and you're too young to know about K-Tel, but the K-Tel albums are the best. You get which now they call them mixtapes, but 20 different artists on one album, you can get it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a big album guy. I need to get back into groove on that. No pun intended, but yeah, I need to start finding some stuff. But when you can play some CDB and then you go to a Marshall Tucker band or something, and you want to go to some Ted Nugent, you can go all the way across with mine downstairs or some Frank. But yeah, it just makes you feel good. It's a past that's present, and it's making its presence known again.
I really would like to release a double LP compilation album of soundtrack songs from Monster Truck Home Videos back in the day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get all 27 of your favorite songs on 2 LPs or 19 CDs for the low price of $29.95. Like, I think that'd be freaking hilarious. Release it on OSMT Records. But hey,
call now.
Yeah,
Call now. And
operators are standing by. Have your cash, credit card, or check by mail ready. Yeah, that would be amazing.
No COD. No COD.
No COD. Sorry, no COD.
No COD.
Yeah.
This place pays shipping, separate shipping and handling.
Yeah.
Of course, then the separate shipping and handling is $99.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But call now and we'll throw in a free lock picking set. Like some random shit for free.
Yeah. Never be locked out of your car again with this patented, pending Slim Jim super tool that you carry in your trunk. Carry it in your trunk everywhere you go, and you'll be ready to get in your car.
Tired of being locked out of your living quarters? Never go in the truck stop alone again. Bring your new lock picking
where's your
set.
Slim Jim? Yeah, where's your Slim Jim? Oh, it's locked in the trunk.
Shit. Oh man, well that's great.
Oh,
what a good note to end on there, Jean. On behalf of myself, Matt, Frank couldn't be here, and of course Matt and Cody as well. Kind of part of the brain trust behind Bottom Dead Center, man.
Sure.
We can't thank you enough for being on the show tonight, man. What a good time.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't do enough of them, and it's my passion to. Sometimes I get to rambling on. I've always been accused of that, but if I can bring any insight to anything that's happened in the past and continue it on in the future, much like yourself, and you're going to have to send me your picture again. It's on one of my phones because I was telling my wife about it. When you had me when you was there at Arrowhead, and how ironic that it was that. Like Snakebite captured the last trophy for USA at the Arrowhead Stadium, and then fast forward 15, 20 years, and Monster Jam goes back there. So that was pretty neat. When I showed Tom Mintz the trophy, he was just like, "Wow, that's really cool," And it just what goes around comes around. That's just a cliche, but it really is.
Yeah, for sure. Well. We'll call it a night on that. Stay tuned. I'm going to drop in at the end of this episode. I'm going to throw in our footage of Jim Kramer and I's interview at his kitchen table with our thoughts about the open house and stuff too. So for all the fans at home watching, keep an eye after our little break here on the video. We'll drop that in. But once again, on behalf of OSMT and Bottom Dead Center, want to thank the Trents, the Chandlers, the whole Bigfoot operation for an excellent open house this past weekend. Shout out to the whole crew at Route 66 Raceway in Joliet and the Throwdown team for bringing an excellent event to Chicagoland, and of course to the chain-smoking Colt Cobra and his alias, Jean Patterson. For jumping on with us tonight. But, Jean, we'll get you on in a future episode to tell more of just your story through the business. And also, if you ever get one of them Breen boys and they want to come on a show, you just let us know.
I'll do it, buddy. Not a problem. Thank you guys so much. Remember, the great Neil Bonnet, racer, winners never quit and quitters never win.
Hell yeah. Or we could remember another driver of the 21 car, David Pearson. I need another cigarette taped to the dash.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, when Lonnie and them made that remake of that car and they run it across Barrett Jackson, Daryl Gwent for the Daryl Gwent Foundation, they actually had to put a cigarette lighter in the car.
I believe
to
it.
make it 100% complete.
That's right.
And that was just really, really, really a cool deal. But yeah, it's been my pleasure hearing your stories, hearing Matt talk about Joliet. I can hear, what you're talking about. I felt like I was there. Your descriptions of the double bus stack and all this stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, this is crazy. But you got to get crazy. But you're doing a show that people want to come back to too.
Yep.
You're not purposely destroying trucks.
Right.
You're letting the guys do what they need to do. You're letting them drive the way they want to drive. If they want to trash them out, load them with a Bobcat skid steer, let them do it. But it's nothing that's dictated.
Yep.
And we need more promoters like that out there.
Well, I tell you what, it's the Matt Looker seal of quality. If you see him at a show, there's a good steakhouse in town, and the show's going to kick ass. All right,
Does he put that on his head?
Yeah,
and gives you the stamp?
We'll get him some kind of head covering that says that. But
okay. All right.
anyhow,
All right.
well, on behalf of our guests tonight, Jean Patterson / Colt Cobra, my co-host Matt Looker, myself, Kyle Doyle, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe to the OSMT YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. Stay up with everything we got going on. We got lots more good content coming to you in the coming weeks. You never know what we'll release. So stay tuned for all the fun, like, subscribe, and hang on to the second half of this video after the break for my conversation with Jim Kramer at his house just a couple days ago after the Bigfoot open house.
Nice guy. First time I met him. Very cool
Yeah.
guy.
Okay,
Very-
you ready? Before you just keep going, I'll finish
Don't
up.
burn up all our
Yeah.
charisma early.
Exactly.
Say
All
when.
right. All right.
Hey, I'm here with Kyle Doyle. He was nice enough to come over to the house and visit me while I was in town. He's got to fly out today. Him and his lovely daughter, Cadence, came in, and she's a trip. She's a lot of fun. Anyway, we're here. I want to talk about the 50th anniversary. My thoughts on it was just blown away. I mean, it's the biggest event Bigfoot's put on. And if you see some video of it, we had the test track here, we had vendor area, and then on the other side, we had old school. Had a Jumbotron playing old school tapes, and we had, how many trucks we had? We had, Terry Woodcock bought 5 trucks. Now, you haven't heard Terry's name a lot in the Midwest. He's a California guy. He does a lot of stunt work in movie cars for them, but he's really into history. And of course, Bigfoot is a part of that history. So he's got he put his truck together. Number 1 got crashed and take his job and shove it the frame bent. We took it out, put another frame in, keep Bigfoot going. So he had got that frame and straightened it up, and the cab got wrecked a little bit, and Bob had gifted that to Eli Mann. Eli Mann, I guess, sold it to Terry, put the cab back together. So we have a truck here with the original frame.
We're working on a full Venn diagram of this cab and these axles were on this truck. It's going to be an interesting family.
And so
tree.
far, it looks really good. And then he had Bigfoot 2.
Yep.
And it's 3.
3 was there.
Had 3, right?
Yep. Eli brought 3. 4, of course, was there wearing snake bite.
Yep. Wearing snake bite, and from Fred. And we had Wildfoot.
Yeah. On Terry's truck.
Yeah. And the Ranger.
The shuttle.
The shuttle, but the Ranger was just something.
You know what I thought was really kind of a neat, sort of like a bow tied on Terry's current race truck, wearing a Bigfoot body, Wildfoot body, is the fact that Terry ran Bigfoot bodies for Bigfoot in a pinch more than a couple times on the West Coast back in the day. I think Freedom Racing probably has it on their Facebook page. There's pictures of Terry's truck with the 97 pink and teal Lightning Bigfoot body on there. So kind of cool that was not the first time one of Terry's trucks had a Bigfoot body on it. Pretty slick.
I know Terry a long time, but he was in the West Coast. I was in the Midwest. And I would go out there sporadically and come back. So I got to know him a little bit, but I had no idea he was so deep into history.
Yeah.
He wants to preserve the history of these monster trucks. Anything we can do to help, Kyle and I both, we want to perpetuate that.
Definitely.
So he's done a great job. I mean, a lot of time and money expended to get here, and we really appreciate it. We made for a hell of a display of trucks. And we had show trucks, beautiful show trucks.
Let me mention one, and that is the shuttle. Right?
Oh, yeah.
How exciting.
Oh yeah. My daughter especially, she drove the shuttle when she was in high school. Her little friends in the back, and she drove around the field, and she got to sit in it, and her smile was like this big. I thought, yeah, that's fantastic.
That's awesome.
But the tank was also there, Fast Tracks. Now it's Fast Tracks 2.0. Craig Paltry has built that. Just met him. Seemed like a very nice guy. He's going to get more involved in the industry. Nice. The tank's been kind of put away for a while. I think you're going to start to see it emerge again and start doing some things. He's really happy about it. He's really blown away by the interest people had in it. I don't think he had an idea of what he bought. Yeah. From Chandler Lloyd. Chandler Lloyd out of Bluffton, South Carolina, rebuilt that thing. Impeccable, beautiful. And now it's going to be bought out to the public again. But overall, like I said, I was blown away. One really cool thing, we took pictures of all the Bigfoot drivers and workers. Yep. It was a little bit of a zoo to get that together, but we finally got everybody up there.
There was a lot of beef up on that stage. I noticed a lot of us have aged very gracefully, and we were all like, all right, cool, we've been to the gym lifting kegs, we're all right.
Later in life, you got to bulk up.
Yeah,
so you can power through
it's cold in Wyoming. I got to stay insulated. But I have to say, from my standpoint, that was an incredible honor to be up there. I was hanging out at the back where I should be. But just seeing all these people in front of me that I looked up to as a kid, I looked up to as a driver, or I worked with, like I couldn't turn my smile off after I saw Chris Ludwig. I hadn't gotten to see Chris, since 2013, and we picked up right back where we left off, which was awesome. But we were talking about at breakfast. We've done shows in big buildings, we've done shows in small buildings, and no matter what, no matter how well. This doesn't apply to you because you're Jim Kramer. No matter how good I did that night in Bigfoot, not everybody in the stands at the end of the night was on my side, right? Somebody liked the other trucks, and rightfully so. But out there, we're looking over the sea of hardcore Bigfoot fans, and everyone was on our team that day. Yeah. Everybody there. That was so just a unified presence, which I thought
was just one guy.
There was one guy that
but I ran him over.
Oh, okay.
Got ran over him. He's out.
He's out.
Yeah, we didn't need him anymore.
Yeah, he got lost. Showed up to the wrong open house.
I know you don't see it on this video, but I have a truck here from Kevin Mann from Scale Giants. Put this thing together, and my wife will come around and probably take a shot of it. But I'm very proud of that. And different things. I got a fellow made me something when I worked with Sergeant Slaughter, and he knows him. He had the sergeant sign it for him. So we took a Bigfoot poster, and I signed a bunch of stuff for him. And this guy's going to frame it and give it to the Sarge. Things like that come out of the past. These people just come out. Mm-hmm. All over the country, I don't know, north, south, east, west, we had fans from everywhere. Yep. And it was great. A little rainy. Not too bad.
Not bad. No dust. There was no dust.
The old school stuff went good. I mean, through a lot of mud. It was too muddy to get any really push on it, but it was a good show.
I think what I took away from this, obviously, my old school monster truck project has really taken off in popularity over the last several months, and it's only because we're all becoming so unified in our passion and our pursuit of documenting the monster truck industry's history. And I want to, yell and shake my fist and be like, why do all the other motorsports get to document their history and preserve all this? And why don't we get to? Why aren't we telling our story? And now it seems like the floodgates are open. The crack is in the dam. The information and the trucks and the video and everything's bursting forward now. And
I'm going to segue to that. Jeff Cook was there.
Yes.
A museum in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Butler, Indiana.
E.T.
Shout out Butler, Pennsylvania.
Hi, we're a good friend of Exton. I got Butler on mine. But it's Indiana. And he was there. We were very gratified to see him. And he's got the museum going. You need to go see it. There's a lot of monster truck there. There's a million pictures on the wall. And all of them, me, got my head hanging out for some reason.
Well, that's the only way to drive.
But anyway, he was there and talk about monster truck preservation.
Yeah.
Him and his team. And he has a team. He has a posse that helps him out. A lot of good people. And
I feel like Jim and Chris Allen relocated their lives to Indiana almost to try and be in support of this, because I think they lived out in the Southwest or California or something like that. So sorry if I'm wrong on that information, but I think they did.
No, you're right. They did. Jim is one of the leaders in the museum, or events type director, and Chris, of course, does the tours. Mm-hmm. You know, he'll talk as long as you want about monster trucks. That's his passion, his life. So if you go up there and take a tour, Chris will treat you right. A lot of stuff to see.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, let's talk about some of the personalities from, the history of Bigfoot and the industry that showed up. I mean, we could record a 5-minute video just doing the roster of Bigfoot, folks that came out, but there was great support too from some other greats. I mean, Gary Porter was there, Army Armstrong was there, tons of old school Bigfoot drivers were there. I mean, how can you beat that? Seeing Army was
Mike Welch was there.
Yeah, Mike Welch. Yeah,
Eli Mann was there. Fred Reed, Snakebite, and Chris Gibson brought the Ranger, and Craig Crouchy brought the tank. So there's just, and I'm missing a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, dude. We need a 10-minute credit to roll.
And you'll see that probably on my fan portal, Jim Kramer, fan portal. We try to do videos with the old drivers, just 2 or 3 minute, just snippets, little birds. And we got most of them, had a great time doing that. We're going to start feeding them to people. So if you're interested at all, keep your eye open. You'll see a lot of different drivers.
Something that I was really honored and excited to see get shared at the open house is, you and Julie had reached out to me some months ago about possibly getting the opportunity to design this year's Jim Kramer hero car for the 50th anniversary. So took my limited Photoshop skills and I sat down on the computer and I was lost. I was like, what do you do for this guy? And we've been friends apart from monster trucks for so long, and you're so accomplished, but you're so reserved and humble about stuff too. And it's like, how do you put this guy's history on an 8.5 by 11 card? But back to the front side there, I thought, I can see your career. Yeah.
How about
as a kid?
Vanna White.
Yeah, Vanna White there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, that's what my bedroom wall looked like when I was a kid. And I know so many of you out there watching this, your bedroom walls probably looked pretty similar to that. We had just Bigfoot stuff, monster truck stuff everywhere. Jim and all the other drivers we loved back then. So what I tried to do was sort of recreate, that 80s bedroom feel of, instead of football players and baseball players and Ferraris and 80s rock stars, that's our 80s rock star right there.
You're pretty upscale, Kyle, because you had a phone in your room.
Well, yeah, I had to, we'll zoom in on that slightly. I had to put a corded phone on there, to really show that it was the 80s with, the push buttons and all that stuff on there. Showed on the OSMT video as well. The I Saw Bigfoot sticker, the hero card, the fan photo, the drawing, all that stuff.
If you take your time to look at it, you'll pick up all these little idiosyncrasies of history.
There's a lot going on in there, but you did a lot, which is awesome, and we're celebrating that, having fun with it. So I can't thank you guys enough for giving me the opportunity. You made it pretty easy in the sense that it's easy to find cool things of your career to put on the card. But man, you made it hard as hell because there's so much out there. The file's this big to get down to a picture card that big.
Cal, years ago, I was talking to a guy, and I'm talking to him, and I go, man, this guy knows more about me than I do. And I go, how do you know all this about me? Internet.
Yeah.
I'm not an internet guy. I was traveling night and day.
Right.
I had no time for internet, nothing. I go, what do you mean internet? Did you ever Google yourself? I said, what's a Google? I swear to God.
Yeah.
I'm the Hoosier boy. Get on there and Google and do Jim Kramer, Bigfoot. And I did. And the guy said, pack a lunch. I go,
you're in for it.
He says, pack a lunch. And so I Google it and I'm going, holy mackerel. And I'm reading all this stuff and I almost felt like it's almost invasive. There was so much information. Anything I might have said was done stupid or done well or whatever, it's all on there. And it took me a while to get used to that.
Well, let's segue perfectly into a good part of the internet that involves monster trucks. This same weekend as the Bigfoot 50th anniversary open house, the Monster Blog had their 20th anniversary. We talked about that on our Bottom Dead Center show recently, and I know the Monster Blog means a lot to you. I mean, I did an interview with you in 2008 for the Monster Blog even, and they had a show in Miami, Oklahoma the same weekend, so not all of their crew was able to be at Bigfoot, but Tim Jones had a great Monster Blog body running in Miami, and Danny Moss was back and forth shooting pictures at both events and stuff. So any shout outs to the TMB crew?
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank Ross and the whole crew. They sent me some really nice t-shirts, which I'm going to enjoy wearing. I don't know, hey, what size shirt do you wear? We told them. It's a real nice Monster Blog, and we really appreciate it. Thanks.
It was a nice box.
It's a nice thought. Thanks for thinking of me.
The box from Ross. Cool.
But
Well, I can't thank you enough just as a fan. I had so much fun. I'm glad my daughter and I made the last minute trip out. You guys promised me a ride to the airport later, right? Are you still going to do that? I don't have to walk? All right.
Yeah.
It's a long walk from Brighton, Illinois to the airport. I know that.
we got Uber. No, we
Yeah. You are my Uber, I hope.
we don't have Uber.
I just want to say I'm a fan more than I was ever a Bigfoot driver, right? I've always been a fan. I'm just a fan that got lucky enough to work at Bigfoot. I can tell you, I get to thank both parties right now. I get to thank you and all the rest of the Bigfoot crew that I grew up with, that I worked with, that I still follow now. But I also get to thank all those fans out there, man. I mean, how proud did that make me as a fellow Bigfoot fan? It was an army of people out there, and so it was like being at a Rush concert. Everybody, we've been to one of those. You've seen how weird Rush fans like me are. So
I'm
militant
not a Rush
about
fan.
it.
He dragged my butt to a Rush concert, and I became a fan.
There we go.
Their
There you
stage
go.
show is just impeccable, and doing it live is a whole different deal.
So apply that then. Bring your non-monster truck friends to a monster truck
Yeah.
show. Get out to Hot Wheels Monster Truck Live or any other show you can get to. Drag them out there. Let's keep making new fans, I think.
Let's talk about you as a driver. I was there when you won your first race.
Okay, now's where we cut the tape, right? No. You were with me for my very first outdoor race and my very first indoor race, which was pretty special. Won the outdoor race. We won night 2 of the indoor race. And I mean, I can't write that any better. They weren't huge shows necessarily or anything.
Huge for you.
It was huge for me.
Yeah.
But you know what is really interesting, and I'm a diehard Ford guy, but it's pretty funny. When you and I went and did my first show, it was in Northampton, Massachusetts, and we had the MLB body on Bigfoot 10 with a Chevy motor in the back.
Yeah.
And we were the first.
Cool body, by the way.
Yeah. We were the first Chevy-powered Bigfoot truck to ever compete and win a race on track, and we left that weekend 3-0, baby. We cleaned up.
did, yeah.
I remember rest his soul, Tim Mente from Storm Damage comes over and
He was surprised.
He's like, what do you got in there? And we're like, oh, it's just 540 display motor. Oh, I want to buy that thing right now. That thing run good. Like, he was all about it, man. It was a fun truck to drive, certainly.
But he had driven with, more seasoned drivers, and one thing about him, you tell him something, he takes it in, and he does it. I've tried to train a lot of people. It's like talking to a wall. You tell them what they need to do and what not to do, and they just do what they do. And he actually took direction real well, so he became an excellent driver.
Well, I appreciate
Another
that.
interesting crush that you two were together for was the driver swap.
Oh yeah, the last ride before the last ride. Yeah, we were in was it Uvalde, Texas, or
Yes, it
something
was.
like that,
Yeah.
or Missouri City? I don't remember.
It was
But,
in Uvalde, Texas.
yeah, we had Bigfoot 15. I was filling in that weekend for Rick Long. He was on PTO or something. It was late in the year. It was like a November, real low-key deal. And I say low-key, we get there, we find out we got a huge pasture to run in, a bunch of crush cars.
It was beautiful.
Mario Andretti shows up to do an autograph session, which was cool. Not the first time we've met Mario, but it was pretty cool. We're sitting at a table signing autographs, and here comes Mario. Hey, how you doing, Bigfoot guys?
You try some of my wine?
Yeah. Make sure it's only $49.95 a bottle.
He always pass out the wine.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
Pass it out.
Yeah.
Pass it out with a price.
So we did Friday's Crush, had a great evening back at the hotel hanging out. We come back out the next day, and he goes, you always used to call me Mr. Kyle sometimes when you were whimsical. And he'd say, Mr. Kyle, what would you think if I slipped in there and drove today one more time? And I was like, so I get to run radio and shoot pictures of Jim Kramer stealth driving a Bigfoot truck. There was not many things at that early point in my driving career I would give up the seat for. And we pulled it off.
Here's a crowd. Here's a set of cars in the middle of the field, and here was the trailer.
Yep.
So we parked the truck right in front of the trailer. They didn't see who came out.
Yep.
I got in there, did car crush and waved and everything, come back and parked. They didn't see who got out. And Kyle comes walking out. He had to do all the autographs and stuff.
Yeah, the fun part. So I'm taking my kill radio duties extremely seriously. That was first foremost. But I had a nice Nikon that I could just pull the trigger on and just rip photos.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here watching you, and I'd say 2 or 3 hits. Your throttle timing needed a little work in the air, and then it was like switch back on. He was good to go. I swore I saw you at one point trying to loosen up a shoulder belt to get all the way over to the window, but I don't think that was going to work.
I tried,
at
it didn't work.
Yeah, no, it didn't work.
And that's why my timing was off.
Yeah, you're just fighting with the belt. Now,
Couldn't see what I was doing.
So 2023 was your last ride at the open house, right? And this was 2011, I think, when we did this, somewhere in there, 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. So for over a decade, we kept this secret, as far as I know. I swore on it. I didn't tell
He
anybody.
came out because we were in a group, and he was about to get in trouble for doing something. hit the cars too fast or something. Somebody bought something that they thought was a little bit dangerous.
Oh, I might have aired it out pretty good or something.
And they started getting in your butt, and I just chimed up and said it wasn't him. That was me that did that. What?
Hey, I was going to take it for you.
This is 10 years later.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Statute of limitations.
I know you would have. I wouldn't have let you go there.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciated that opportunity. I mean, we had a lot of really fun times together in so many ways, but that one was really, really cool.
You know what I remember about that is nursing that hauler back with a bad transmission. Remember?
Yeah.
We made
the old black Volvo.
We drove 1,000 miles with bearings hanging out of the transmission. Literally.
We'd be cruising up the interstate, and if you had to roll out of the throttle to shift gears or just back out, and you could just feel through the shifter, just we're like, man, we've had so much fun on this trip. Like, we got into some shenanigans. Yeah, I mean, it's like we flew a stealth bomber in, did a bomb drop, and then we got shot up on the way back out. And we were just limping that thing home.
We're flying Stearman home.
Yeah, we made it, but.
That's part of the million monster truck stories. I mean, if you get these drivers together, you could talk for a year.
Easy.
About different situations and what you had to go through, and you went through everything, you did everything because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's infectious. It's almost like a drug. You have to go out and entertain. There's nothing like entertaining that crowd and getting that feedback. You can feel it.
Yep.
And it makes you work every day, 20 hours a day for you to go out and do 15 minutes.
You just don't want to disappoint the people. You don't know anybody necessarily out there, and it could be a tiny Firestone car crash at a little tire store. It could be a stadium full of people. All you know is at the end of the night, you don't want to be at autographs hearing people complain about what you did, or you don't want to let a young fan down that came out to see Bigfoot do well, and you don't want to be the guy that drops the ball on that. And I think back when I was driving, and Dan Runty's one of our lead drivers at the time, Larry Swim's a lead driver at the time. There's other great guys driving on. I mean, Chris Ludwig could step into a truck at any minute and whip all of us, right? So there was real talent around us. Josh Gibson came right after I was done. So there's real talent around there, and you want to I don't want to suck. I'm just trying not to suck at that point. So it's really motivating to want to go out and do a good job for the people. You don't want to let them down.
And the one thing about it is, I don't care what kind of show you go to, like you said, it says Bigfoot on it. It's such a high bar.
Yeah.
You're going to entertain everybody. I don't care if there's 50 or 15,000. You're going to do what you do. You're going to set that bar high and achieve it.
Definitely.
Kyle, it's been really great talking to you. I'm glad you stopped by.
Thanks for having me.
I'll get you to the airport.
Please. That'd be great. That's a long walk.
I can only stand like 2 hours of you.
Okay, well, that's fair.
You talk my one good ear off.
Okay, well, when we only got 10 minutes to get 30 minutes away to the airport, we better get going.
Plenty of time. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.